Welcome to PUBG Pull-Ups. I'm your host, Matchum, and ESL Masters Americas Phase Number 2 has been absolutely on fire so far, where we've had some amazing plays. But I saw this one and I knew I had to take a look at it and break it down for you guys. A gargantuan game coming out from TSM with 20 kills, Dignitas with 12 kills of their own, and Fiumba in the hunt for their second chicken dinner of the event. Let's take a quick look. TSM making the push, trying to get something established. Molotovs coming from the side. Fiumba realizing the fact that they have an opportunity. Dignitas has the high ground, but DraftKings trying to take it from them. Luke 12 still up for his squad, sitting on 10 kills, gets spotted out, and there we go, trying to take out the last members of Dignitas, getting a little bit more time. TSM sitting on 20 kills as we are looking into a straight up 2v2. Purdy takes a ton of damage. Luke 12 goes down. Purdy's got a smidgen of life.
Oh my goodness, Purdy, what can you do? Oh, he's got the red dot on the mini. He's probably out of ammo for that Groza. And that is it. Fiumba is actually going to take it over with just 4 kills. But man, what an insane ending to that game.
To set up a couple of key points for you for later sections of this game, Fiumba goes very early to a compound that's going to have massive benefit in the late game. Close to roughly circle 2 is whenever they make a move to a very pivotal point for them. Here you can see Dignitas approaching on the blue to the southeast, while TSM has a strong lock on the southwest. By their powers combined, anybody that approaches in the south gets absolutely demolished. Gas Cans, 22, Versus, Veritas, Young Kings, anybody that approaches this area just gets absolutely destroyed. While all of this fighting is going on and TSM and Dignitas are racking up kill counts, the circle continues to force everybody closer and closer into these center points. But now the real battle begins. What's about to start is a 3-way team fight and a duel of minds and tactics that's going to last multiple minutes and be an attrition war every step of the way. TSM has a high compound with a steep slope literally looking down on both of the other teams. Fiumba has the other compound inside the circle, which they have held all the way since Circle 2 that we mentioned earlier. Dignitas has the roughest position here. They have a hillside that they're leaning into and trying to make sure that they use an opposite dip from both teams to deny any vision as much as they possibly can. As the next circle pops, TSM still has their high ground position but lose most of the compound itself. Dignitas is still clinging to the hillside, now has to move into sight lines that TSM is holding down. It's a slow crawl to try to get into position, but they navigate it well, with TSM being forced more and more to look into Dignitas's positioning and slowly and steadily losing more and more vision on what's happening with Fiumba. Yet another circle now pops. This is the first one in a long time that Dignitas does not have to move. TSM now has a massive problem. The high ground that has been their home is no longer inside the circle. TSM is not going to go down easily though. Purdy opts in to hop in a car and has a plan. He just sends it off the hillside. He knows that if he can get into that point, he will be in a danger close position to Dignitas and be able to cover his team's approach, because we all know TSM in throwable range is frightening. Dignitas has their back to the blue zone in a very late game and are now held to the west by TSM, who is extremely close, and to the south by Fiumba, who they think is pretty close but don't know exactly where they are. 5 minutes have now passed of counter move to move between these squads to get into this position as the last circle pops. TSM is leaning into the north. They're hoping that Fiumba or Dignitas will make a move first on each other and then they can just pounce Dignitas from behind. Fiumba, on the other hand, just moves closer to the center point, assuming that it's going to be TSM and Dignitas that have to fight first due to the positioning next to the blue zone. The first domino that's going to fall is going to be Fiumba Silzen, as Dignitas is sparking, spots him out, gets the drop on him, and knocks it. This begins a TSM crunch into Dignitas, not yet wanting to commit, but after that quick knock, no more firefight is happening, and TSM realizes that they need to pump the brakes a little bit and slow down. It was just a quick knock and not a fight committal. Each team now takes a second to reset and get its bearings. With TSM and Dignitas now mere feet from each other, Fiumba actually has time to get the res onto Silzen and look to the northeast from the center of the circle where both teams are at. With TSM and Dignitas so close, it was only a matter of time before somebody peaks at the wrong point, and it could be TSM's Luke 12 that spots out Honey Badger and gets the quick knock to start off everything. Knocks and flushes come quickly from TSM and Dignitas' side as they know they need to finish this fight fast. Fiumba could be coming at any given moment and could choose to attack either one or both of these teams from behind. Yet all is going according to plan for Fiumba. They now begin to crest the hillside and get vision on the fight. TSM spots it out, gets a knock onto one of the members of Fiumba, then finishes off Dig as fast as they can. This drops us into a 3v3 that is actually a 2v2, as each side of Fiumba and TSM have one knocked member apiece. Fiumba's Draft King again flexes that eastern flank all into the angle that the now dead Dignitas was holding to get the knock onto Luke 12. Purdy now realizes he's all by himself, leans back against the wall, but it is only a matter of time as the circle abides nothing, and Fiumba spots him out to take the victory. Fiumba walks away with a win in that round, moving to 2 chicken dinners, while TSM gets 20 kills and Dignitas' 12 kills, the two teams wiping out half the lobby just by themselves. While Fiumba did walk away with the chicken dinner, every one of these teams showed a mastery of how to play PUBG and things that you could take into your games at home. If you enjoy this, make sure that you tune into what's going on in ESL Masters Americas Phase number 2, as we have more action that's going to be kicking off this weekend. For more amazing displays of skill and casting like this, make sure you tune back in for the next episode. Until then, make sure to tell us about your favorite moments from ESL Masters Americas Phase number 2 down in the comments below. Till then, see you soon.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're watching around the world. Welcome back to the ESL PUBG Masters Americas. My name is Toffees, and we are about to kick off day 2 of our second weekend of play. 4 games down and 8 to go. We're going to get right into the action, but it won't just be me. I'm joined by a panel of experts, guys who've been in the mix and have fought it out themselves in the toughest situations. It is the legendary Hypoc and Godspeed. Gentlemen, so glad to have you here. And if you're okay with this, Godspeed, I know y'all played at this level. I know you've been in these pressure cookers, so I'm going to ask you some questions to try to dig into that experience today.
I appreciate it. I don't know if they pay me enough for your questions, but we'll have to see. But yeah, it's great to be here. Obviously, I was off yesterday. The games yesterday were absolutely nuts, but I'm sure we'll get into that a bit.
Pac, you excited about today? How were the games yesterday? What's your favorite side dish?
Hey, I'm just glad to be. Thank you again for that one as a rehearsal corker. But yeah, just glad to be on this side on the desk because the games yesterday. I mean, we were blessed with some crazy endings. Happy to take a breather and have a sit back and watch the games with you guys today.
We do. We're going to watch. We're going to enjoy. But before we get into reminiscing, let's talk about some stuff like format. Remind everyone how we got here. 200 teams dropped to start this event, Godspeed. And through the meat grinder, the best 8 from 2 regions are at war now.
Yeah, basically it was 2 sub-regions, only 8 teams apiece, and now we have this kind of super lobby, and it's been a really exciting lobby so far, if I'm being completely honest. I think LATAM has really shown through, and yeah, it's been amazing.
It has been, and they're all doing this so that they can take home the cash prize, $6,500 for the first week's winner, $6,500 for the second, and obviously additional cash will go down that line. Whoever is crowned the grand champion, that is the biggest earner over the 2 weeks, gets $5,000 extra dollars dropped in the coffer. That's a nice bonus, but here's my question. First pro question, Hypoc. You've been here, you've played for the big money or tried to earn your way into the top spots. What is more important right now to these players? Getting that cash or banking those PGC points?
It's all about PGC points. I mean, it's the bigger purse at the end of the year. It's the more, arguably, you know, the most prestigious event across the entire calendar for PUBG. So, yeah, for me, it's all about the long game.
It is. It's all about the long game, but it's also about the end game. So I want to go back over and look at 3 awesome end games we had yesterday with my 2 pros as they break it down. Let's go! Replay time! I don't know why I did that. It was just out there.
Yeah, I thought I fixed your energy, I guess. But honestly, the circles yesterday, especially on the second shift, were absolutely out of control. But as far as the end games, we had quite a few fantastic ones. This is one that started on Miramar. Obviously, gas cans were in a bit of a tight situation between Oath and TSM. They were able to wipe them out. Crazy fight ensues. There was so much utility coming out on Oath side. I think there was actually also an unfortunate team knock as well. Gas cans were able to kind of narrow down to a one-on-one, and it almost went Oath's way with that switch to the mini, but they were able to close it out.
It was, and this was probably my highlight of yesterday. This game on a wrangle here is actually starting this off with Sharp Shot's little flank here, cleaning up all of Young Kings to bring it to the top 4. But Fiumba, I mean, we talked about this team time and time again. Just the composure demonstrated in this late game yesterday was what really stood out to me. They allowed this to kind of run its course, come down to the star, and whilst Feiska made things a little bit interesting towards the end here with this AUG, they hold strong. Well, I say as they hold strong, they lose a couple along the way, but another example of Fiumba just remaining calm when they need to in the end game.
Yeah, Fiumba's been absolutely amazing. And then moving on to this kind of last little clip of delight we have here, and it's very rare, I gotta say, that we see an actual game end where it's a full-on just 4-on-4 situation where the terrain isn't even necessarily incredibly favorable to another team, and that's basically what we got here. It was Oath versus Sonics and a 4-on-4, and it went down actually incredibly interesting because everything was very slow. You saw both teams jockeying for position. You see Snaker's destroying Kick, but it's crazy because that fight took so long to set up and it ended within 10 seconds. It was really nuts.
Like all of my best jokes, they take forever to set up and they just kind of are over in an instant. All right, let's talk about the overall standings. Oath is on top, TSM right behind him, Gas Cans and Fiumba with the only dinners on the board, but it's a little bit different. Hypoc, let's talk about what stands out to me right now. Last week, when I watched from home, after the first day of play, I felt like Latin America was just clobbering the top of that leaderboard. They had come out, they had their spinach in the morning. I don't know what they had, Wheaties maybe, but they destroyed people. Today, or this week, it was a little bit different with only Fiumba sort of representing in that top 6 or so.
Yeah, and it was interesting to see. I'm probably going to get hated for bringing this game up again, but I mean, a crash yesterday, I think back to that crash on well, I'd say their crash, the one of 3 crashes that came into that flat top just outside Snake. And it was weird scenarios like that. And I mean, me and Poro were talking about it back and forth on the cast yesterday of this kind of dead time, this point of the game where you're not really achieving anything. You're just taking shots at teams like 500-600 meters away. And I feel like that was quite common actually with some of the LATAM teams yesterday. 303 though is one that I'd like to counter with that. From last week, conversely, yesterday we were seeing them become very active, and it was kind of looking as if they were heating up towards getting themselves into a really comfortable position. Other than that Stauber ending, there was a couple of times where I was thinking, actually, this team fight, if they come out clean here, they're going to be in a really, really solid position.
303 has been a tough one because 303 can be rough, and if they turn it around, it's still 303. Let me ask you this, Godspeed, and it comes down, I want to talk about what you just brought up, and you kind of brought it up in your segment, about 4 getting to the end. I feel like in the old days, we would often see a team get 4 there, maybe a couple of snakes in the grass, and teams would always tell us, our goal is get 4 to the end. That's how we win. But all of a sudden, all of the teams who are left are getting 3 or 4 to the end. How does that cause, like, how do you adjust to that? How do you deal with this new, we're going 4v4 at the end every time?
I mean, ultimately, what changes is the decisions you make leading to that point, right? You may make a play to save a teammate where you wouldn't necessarily try to do that before, in a different format, simply because of the fact that it's more advantageous. You're gonna, how do I put this? Hold on. You are going to win more games the more members you have alive, right? Yeah. So maybe in the early game before, if you had a member that is split in a different compound and he gets knocked, you probably wouldn't go for that res. However, now it's more important, and we also see splits kind of last a lot less than they used to. It's much more important to get forward to the end game because you're going to increase your chances of winning, obviously. So you see more aggressive plays and teams willing to save people that they maybe wouldn't before.
I think sorry, Steve, I was going to say that what we're seeing is where we've talked about kind of the meta developing and teams kind of finding their feet. And again, big talking point last week was kind of team tendencies, and some of the North American teams kind of struggling with that. I think we're now seeing teams kind of pin everything on one team fight as well, as opposed to seeing these kind of half-in plays where it's like, we're split, we're going to send 2 towards this compound, see if anyone peeks, see what happens, sort of things. We're actually seeing a lot more team fights now where it's like, either everyone dies or everyone survives on the team. There's not as much of this kind of dribs and drabs in terms of like, half-assed rotations and not really going all in on some of these plays. So I think that's definitely a contributing factor towards that as well.
Yeah, I think a good example of that was the Gambit at the garage yesterday. We sort of saw that initial fight. I think it was
exactly.
Sharp dealing with just crash after crash. But the one thing that stood out to me is I think 3 different Latin American teams crashed to take Space Station Gaming out, and they they committed every resource every time. And the only team that didn't, I think it was Fiumba, decided to pull off and go elsewhere, and they just got eradicated because they weren't aggressive enough. They ended up parking and getting naded to death. So that aggression does seem to be coming in, Latin America in particular doing it. Let me ask you this, Godspeed. I asked earlier, and I want to get a clear answer because I thought it was valuable. Those snakes, the ones who used to kind of sneak in with 4 or 5 other snakes in one team of 3 or 4, now that there's multiple teams of, say, 3 or 4, and usually like one snake, is there more of an advantage to the snake because everyone else is so focused on the large teams?
Yes and no. That's a really ambiguous question.
Okay. I'll tell you what. Let's fine tune it. Come back to it after this first game because it's about to start. And instead, I'll ask you, who do you think comes out on top after today's day of play? Godspeed?
I'm gonna go with TSM FTX. Why not?
Nice. Okay. Why not? Live your dreams. And Hypoc, who do you think comes out on top?
I'm going Fiumba. I'm feeling it. They've continued to impress me, and I guess the biggest question would have been coming into day one yesterday, were we going to see the same level of play from them as last week? But I'm really, really hoping they solidify themselves now, put up another win at least today.
It'd be nice to see. I'm going to stick with the Sonics. They were knocking on heaven's door yesterday, but weren't able to kick it down. Maybe this is their opportunity. But enough of us. The talk has come to an end. Let's get ready to get into game number 1 of day 2 at the ESL PUBG Masters with your cast. It's Clover and the Kamadi.
Thank you so much, Toffees. And Cameron, I'm excited. We've been casting quite a bit together, so it's for me looking forward going into this, because yesterday, as the guy said, I mean, it was 4 very exciting matches, some really eccentric end games. I mean, I really can't say that any of them were boring, and so kind of going into today, I'm curious to see if we're going to see any repeat performances from some of those teams that put down chicken dinners, or maybe finally a chicken dinner from a team that got very close but didn't quite taste it.
Yeah, we heard Kickstarter talk during the interview at the end of the day yesterday, and he was very confident that the adaptations that his team made after week 1 coming into this week were here to stay, essentially. You can see in the number of top placements, they only have 1 game that they were able to actually secure that win, but they were in the end game so many different times.
Yeah, and I mean, again, another heartbreak that kind of comes to mind as well when we look at week 1 and, of course, yesterday, the Sonics. I mean, there was a big topic of conversation if they could really put down the wins that we were thinking of yesterday. Still didn't run away with it, but they came close a couple of times. As we kind of go into this very first match, what's on your mind in terms of play for them, especially as we start out on Miramar?
I'm leaning a little bearish on Sonics at the moment. I think that's the negative one. I'm not a finance guy. They're both animals. They both start with B. I still get them confused. But I'm not quite so confident in them anymore. They got into the late game a few games, but outside of the standoff with Oath, they weren't a huge presence there. And it's not like they have a huge kill count to sort of give us another look, another sort of like reason why I should continue backing them. I still feel like they need to do some of their own adaptation. They're losing people throughout the mid game. They seem to be struggling to really be that solid force that we're so used to seeing the Sonics mid game through the end.
Yes, now, well, teams are just about in the plane, so we're going to go ahead and jump in a match here in just a sec, guys, so we can get an idea, again, I mean, how this is going to go, at least as we've kind of watched through the weekends. Last week, you know, every day was very different style of play. We saw so many different teams step it up. Last week was a really good week for LATAM, kind of solid at the end of the day yesterday as we switched off to Erangel. LATAM kind of struggled a bit here on Miramar, so it's definitely going to be something that I'm looking forward to seeing if maybe Fiumba can kind of play a little bit of catch up. I mean, in terms of the overall weekend, the overall winner of ESL Masters, there's a big chance that a team like Oath or Fiumba could essentially run away with it this weekend if they have a good performance this week compared to how they did last.
Yeah, I mean, I voted for Fiumba as my team to watch yesterday. We got a little bit of mirroring that on the desk today. And they have a win, but they only have 11 kills. So sort of reflecting the similar points around the Sonics, it's only been 4 games. We can't read too much into that. This is the day that's really going to be the one to sort of show who are the teams that are really properly in the running for a a victory of the weekend. And then, of course, how does that even match with last weekend and for a victory overall? But we do see our first phase of the very first game. It's going to be right over El Pozo. Dodge, they should be pretty happy about this one. They really struggled yesterday. They saw very few endgames, if any at all. I actually think that they have yet to see a phase 9, if my memory serves me correct. So being right in the middle here, hopefully they're able to find themselves a nice position in the early game. But of course, that could all change when phase 2 and phase 3 come into things. We saw some wild shifts throughout this entire event, but even specifically yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about Miramar, as you say, that phase 2, phase 3, oftentimes it can just take a really hard shift in one direction, make a huge cutoff for some teams that maybe couldn't quite get as center as they wanted, and it has to keep that travel going. So as you say, that good position for teams like Dodge. But, it's kind of a team that's caught me off guard in a bad way. I really expected a better performance from them for this event. I felt that they really had this style of play down. Oh, Faiska.
Talking about another team that's been struggling. 303. Hey, listen. They had an end game of their own. We saw that standoff against Fiumba in the replay package at the beginning of the day. But 303 is definitely one of those teams that, outside of a few key performances, my mind goes to Faiska and Trisk specifically. Rarely do we see them actually put up some memorable rounds, memorable full event showings. But to lose someone so early, that obviously makes it worse for any team, no matter your overall situation.
Yeah, I mean, you can even see we've got Finna and Roth on it close by to Faiska. So looks like a member of 303 is heading out that way to get the res, but definitely not how you kind of want to start the day, especially when you're in such close presence of two different teams. Now, given this is phase 1, this is part of the zone, they really don't have to travel too far, but it takes away that key looting time. Faiska is now 3.5 minutes into the game, still doesn't have any resources to show for it, and you could, again, can see you've got 2 members of Dodge in this area. So 303 gonna have to take themselves back to their loot. But I mean, you've already got teams on the move now. Attrition, as well as Sonics. You can see, looks like they did spot Mime in that wrap rotation, but they're gonna stop a little bit short here. Again, still going for some of that loot, but a good split out here from Attrition. Now, we heard. Excuse me. Hold that thought. I was about to say we're talking about Latin aggression here, and we're getting a prime example of that right now. 303 Esports actually choosing to crash here onto Base Station Gaming's compound, though H11 Jr. is going to find himself knocked.
Roth is able to drop down, secure the kill that he got. That's Faiska and H11 Jr. fully confirmed, but Dodge, they want in the mix here. Roth maybe didn't expect that. In fact, isn't exactly sure where their shots are coming from. There is still a member of 303 left inside the compound that they got to figure him out. But ultimately, this was a very solid defense by SSG. They have those 2 players on the hill that should come and peek down. But Trisk here, he is the big threat. The barrel is spotted. Trisk is going to go for the shots. Fortunately, Roth is able to get out of the way.
Does have a nade underhand thrown it, and he's going to use that as an opportunity to pull back and have a better angle to play from this with the buggy in there. I mean, he really can't play this doorway except for that off angle we've been seeing, but Roth is actually going to return a nade. It's going to fall short, though. But Trisk still opening doors, pre-firing, trying to see if he can just catch any member of SSG off here. But right now, Civ and Roth keeping that pressure. And you can actually see Hella Senpai and Dodge now have peaked to third party. This Roth, though, is going to pick up the knock, and that is another player of 303 down. And potentially, Dodge might just stick around for a little bit longer, see if there's something they can pick off of it. Again, remember, they're prime in the circle. They don't really have to move from the spot, but that doesn't mean that they can't choose to engage if they want. Just, have a little fun on the side.
I'd be surprised if they did a full send on that. Not only for SSG, it would be heartbreaking to just get constantly barrage in a building again like they were yesterday, but mostly because Dodge, they have a split across that field, which is a really, really good Circle 1 position for them. But I do want to throw it back to 303 just for a second. Trisk, you saw how he was playing around that door and inside the garage. He was keeping himself elusive and making it difficult for SSG to properly take him out, and using the support of Stone Storm on the backside to try and protect him, maybe deal some damage back. Unfortunately, the third partying from Dodge came in and was really, I think, the final nail in the coffin for him, and that shows you how big of a risk it is to go for an engagement. 303 wanted to send it in there because they wanted to get their teammate revived and stay as 4, because that gives you the highest probability of being able to win if you're able to get to the late game. You can argue, is it worth it to send it for your 4th member rather than just playing it as 3? I think it's a coin flip either way. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for them.
Now as the rest of the team's getting ready to get into the zone or reposition themselves to where they'd like to be here for this first circle, you can see Sonics do have 2 kind of close to the rest of SSG, Shrimsy and Tiggleton, hanging out here just in the shanty, and it looks for the most part like they are fairly good on loot. I mean, 3 minutes until this circle closes, sometimes the hardest part, especially again, as we talked about with Miramar, those hard shifts that can really dictate what flavor of circle this is going to be. And with a starting zone like this, it could potentially be a pozo setup. It could go a little bit further south, maybe keep Bante or Landarilla into play. There's a lot of ways that this circle can play out. So I think a lot of teams have their own mindset and where they want to play, how they like to wrap and rotate into these zones. And so you're just kind of seeing everybody patiently wait to see where that phase 2 takes us.
Fumba using this time of waiting to scout around. Troglodyta is also pushing in. We're still waiting for a few teams to make their way inside the circle. Young Kings, No Chance, and Dignitas all coming in from the eastern side, and they're going to be playing from the edge, most likely, at least for phase 1. But everyone else is crowding closer and closer towards this center, towards this area that we saw SSG 303 dodge, and even Sonics have a initial position around. Here at Dignitas now coming all the way through Los Leones, going to be coming in from the southeast side, not far from Mercado. It's a pretty open area. And they're coming in with a good enough timing that they won't have to wait around for too long and really just be there in time for the phase 2 shift and be able to make a play off of that.
I mean, this almost feels like, and I'm, well, this is very speculation here, but with Honey Badger with gas cans, we'd oftentimes see them come in a little bit late, especially on these early circles where you don't really know where it's going to be, and seeing them kind of take as much time as they need, grab vehicles. You can see Poonage actually stopping, scouting out, Oh, see if you know, it's actually FTX that has spotted out another player. It is going to be versus Alo taking some super long range shots, but nothing connecting here.
Hey, they're peacocking on their high ground here, and they're trying to do their best to keep any sort of team away from their position, away from their area. Penta, however, has been spotted, I believe. Where is that from? That's so far away that I'm not actually able to see where the shot's coming from on the minimap. It could easily have been dodged from El Pozo, just judging by his angle. But TSM should be pretty happy with this position. It's not going to be one that they are likely going to stay on too long. Once it hits phase 4 and phase 5, I imagine they're going to want to leave because the circle tends to not favor this area. But at least for the early moments of the game, it gives you a lot of information. TSM have been public for quite a while about having information as the name of the game from at least the first couple of phases.
Yeah, and you can see again on the overhead views, the last of the teams working their way in zone. Actually, Rizola still hanging out, and Al Zahara, the rest of No Chance, have worked their way in. But everybody getting about as close as you can to the center. You can see Relo and Kickstart at the top of the hill do have eyes on both Dodge and 22. But again, this is all just kind of a pause. No real engagement yet until the zone starts to push people into one another. And again, I mean, nobody really opting for Pozo. Dodge did send 2 in a bit of a split, but until this circle decides on where it's going to go, which there you have it, at El Pozo Field Circle, I think this is going to change a lot of things. We're going to start to see teams take that northern wrap into the city, potentially maybe even play the northern side right south of Crater Fields. A lot of times we'll see some teams go for that high ground.
I'm curious to see where all these teams from the south side are going to have to send it. We might see a couple go into El Pozo, sure, but this is still too early, and it's not close enough to center for anyone to really be comfortable banking on it. However, what are you going to do? You're going to fight for the hills on the east side, fight for the hills on the north? We might still see a couple of teams have no other option but go into El Pozo. Dodge already is converging, condensing back onto that El Pozo position, but we're seeing a lot of teams rotate through. Oath and 22 rotating in tandem with each other. I think Oath are going to stop, allow 22 to get in front of them. Maybe take some shots, but otherwise could just be hanging around. This is not a bad position if they're comfortable playing in from the edge.
And, you kind of talked about that TSM position earlier that was center and all that information. You can see they've actually restructured just a little bit. One of the things we typically see is TSM likes to play from that compound inside El Pozo that we saw Hello Senpai in. They usually like to do a bit of a split here, but as they can see, it is already occupied. That's not going to be able to be the play for them right now. So I think as Alo pulls back, TSM kind of thinking of a plan B. Now that they can't quite play the city the way they want to. The problem right now, though, is that it's getting really crowded in this area. Speaking of crowded, Veritas pushing away from Dignitas. I'm actually surprised that Danny G managed to survive that without taking really any damage.
Ooh, Sparking trying to go for a bolt action shot with the M4. Perhaps scouting towards SSG, but he is getting shot at by the other members of Veritas. Dignitas here just barely made it, not barely, but they just made it into the circle before the shift. Now they're going to have to continue to drive, and this is the big question. We're still seeing a couple of teams linger out in the south, and all of the main entrance points here that are actually in the circle from this direction have been filled. So they could do a big wrapping rotation around the west side, and I think that's what they're going to be going for. Go around Pozo. You can see there's still a couple of open spots to the north of that city. Dignitas don't know that for sure just yet, but they could easily be able to scout that out once they rotate in. Even if they have to eat a little bit of blue damage, it's still early on in the game that it's not a big deal.
Yeah, and I mean, as you say, there's all those priority compounds, some of which they can already see have been taken, and others they just know. I mean, in a circle like this, you know it's going to be occupied, and so taking that wide wrap around El Pozo, coming in from the western side of it, it can give you not only that information in the city, but a little bit of that safety when circles like this are a bit clustered. But right now, Oath also on the move right now, taking a little bit of fire from No Chance, and I'm excited to see that they are finally making some engagements. During week one, we saw No Chance really keep their head down and not take shooting opportunities. Here, they're going to find it. Kickstart picked off and flushed as Rizola picks up another kill for his team on the board.
That was a solo maneuver by Kickstart. The rest of Oath were hanging out in the area that we saw them land at with their, tandem rotate with 22. I don't know if Kickstart was going up there as just an initial scout. Maybe they thought they had information. Rizola maybe wasn't peeking out of that compound. There is a little bit of a split that No Chance are employing of their own. But unfortunately, Kickstart is taken out, and Oath are going to have to continue this on S3. But Phase 2 is about to close. Phase 3... slightly north of center. This makes TSM's position still very, very useful. Same thing with Dodge, same thing with Versus. Dignitas is going to keep rotating up that west side, but they could be followed up by a number of teams just below them, like Sonics, like Trogloditas. Attrition here, just on the south, they're going to have to find a way, and they're right next to the blue, and it is, in my opinion, too early to be stuck in a situation like this.
Yeah, again, the circles don't typically go as far north as they're shifting right now, and it's only phase 3, so there's always the opportunity they could spring back down further south. But that does make a lot of open areas of play, not only for rotation and transition, but when teams put back down, there's not going to be a lot of coverage to go forward from here. So, as you can see, teams really wasting no time to get themselves to that next position, and Dodge capitalizing on that to get any damage that they can, hoping to pick off a player in a knock, but so far, nothing connecting as far, but they have spotted out members of TSM as Vegas taking a couple more shots there with the Mini 14. You can see TSM switching to their DMRs as well to return, but right now, pressure coming in from teams that are picking the same positions. No Chance is actually setting up right on top of Young Kings.
This is really solid. Oh, I was really hoping that And1 would want to try and be the trap there. But the rest of No Chance, I think that's a little too much heat for him, and he's going to back away out of the kitchen. Going to keep their own little set up there, Young Kings on the north side. But here, Trogloditas versus Dignitas. They're both going for the same location in El Pozo.
Dignitas kind of put down on top of Trogloditas at just about the same time. You can see Dignitas doesn't want any of it. They're going to pick their vehicles, pack up, and pull back just a bit to let Trogloditas have this space. There's still a couple of other free spots, and it looks like they're actually going to take warehouse just beside it. But I mean, again, there's still potential that this can pull away from the city early on. So you can see Dignitas trying to get their vehicles in as safe a position as they can so that they've got them for that exit strategy here. As you can hear the bullets coming in from Dodge, from Trogloditas to their position.
Yeah, the horsepower of that Marauder can be a killer sometimes. Just can't get over the edge. They're probably going to concede that one. Those tires are going to be gone, looking at the angle that Troglodita was shooting at them. But now Attrition, they are rotating in. They are finding a slight position inside the circle with the edge of this ridge. But Fiumba, without a doubt, heard them come in. And look, there are some other players behind. There's the last remaining member of 303 still up, taking out blue damage. I believe he was spotted by LFP. But there's also Veritas that are approaching from their ridge just next to this one. They're going to have to go further in because of the blue, and they could easily crash Attrition's position. Oh, it's a clown car.
Oh, I mean, when you're running out of options, you've got to make do with what you can. And Stone Storm, remember, the rest of his team died very early on. He's trying to keep his head down, but it's no use. Viz King has spotted him. Shots out there by Attrition. Nothing connecting just yet, but a phase 4 upon us. Things are getting spicy. And speaking of spicy, Fiumba now here with Veritas. As you see, Shangxing has been taken down, but so has Lobes in a bit of a trade.
The Clown Cars lost 2. Lobes could still get revived, but already 2 down from Fiumba. It's just Draft King and Emmy remaining, and who knows what Attrition are going to do off of this. They see some kill feed. You can already see them moving in, but they also could just be rotating past this fight because they need to get to the circle. The circle is going to be on El Pozo. Seeing multiple teams rotating. Draft King is trying to punish it, but it is at the very least gonna make them stop if this wasn't their intended location already.
I mean, Attriction's got a difficult decision to make right now. Do you take care of the other 2 teams in this compound, or do you look for a strategy to get in the zone? The longer that they waste on this fight, the harder it is going to be for them to enter. Remember, there's still plenty of other teams inside the circle and willing to make this a bad day for everybody inside. But see right now, inside El Pozo, things are a little bit hectic here as well. 6 teams put down inside the city. Finna actually putting his guns away, trying to get some extra speed there to get away. See if he can keep himself up alive as well. Oath working on that res. So you've got gas cans here. I think TSM also in the city as well, but back down to the south, Fiumba first to try and break free.
Emmy's in a vehicle trying to send his way out to try and find another angle. All 3 buildings, all 3 different teams, and I think Attrition realized that there's no value in this fight. They're going to try and get out because the blue is pushing in. I mean, he went down. There's only 1 member of Fiumba remaining. Now Veritas, they're in a position to punish these retreats. A lot of damage on Attrition.
Ooh. A good hit there by Lobes. This is going to knock Kishin. You see the flush comes right away. It's actually vehicle almost cutting off the rest of Attrition, but they are going to find the high ground as they continue that wrap into the zone. And you can see the tracers across the screen. Multiple teams now shooting out in this direction. The problem for Veritas is that as they are the last to leave as well, all eyes are on them. Back out to the east, though. VS, no chance. 22, just a clustering of LATAM teams all trying to play the edge. You can see a good trade out. T-Plins finishing his kill there onto Rizola. Taking a quick break to heal back up. But you can see Balkan, Cable. And wrap back around to the high ground. See if they can not only avoid a bit of damage coming in from 22. You need to be careful for the rest members of Versus, who are actually a little bit late to help out here.
Balkan spots out 22 in the blue, so they got to make this fight end fast. But it's down to 2 players, 2 versus 4, even with the high ground advantage. It's not going to work out for them. Runs out of ammo. Gets taken out by a great grenade by Biznaga. It's just Cable left, prepping a frag of his own.
There you go, throwables out. I mean, you got to give credit to No Chance here. They took the engagement as strong as they could, but ultimately it wasn't going to be enough here. Ray Trey actually getting the last shot onto No Chances. They are going to go out in 14th. Viz King spotted out. That's it for Attrition as well. And you can just see what's happening to the teams stuck engaging on the edge and coming into the zone too late. They're just left with, you know, pardon the pun, but no chance getting into the zone as this is starting to become potential for an urban finish here in Miramar. Meanwhile, 12 teams still alive, 44 players, majority of which are inside the zone and inside the city.
Yeah, listen, the early bird gets the worm, and when you're on the edge, that screams so true when the circle shifts away from you, because you have to deal with a fight that's right next to you. But if you take too long to do that one, you're going to deal with the fight of the place that you wanted to go initially. The Veritas are the next team to show an example of that. They got some good damage, they got some good kills, but now that they're going to be going into teams that have been fully set up, same thing in 22, they're up against TSM.
That dip's not free. Saw 22 pull up onto the dip, but throwables out aplenty. Hastings gets knocked. Great nade takes down Vinny. The car actually hitting Biznagas. He gets taken out. It's just up to Raji once again. But again, that nade. I mean, TSM and throwables, what better combo here as they hold their own, get 3 kills. But I mean, again, really the play here is inside the city as more teams try to send it. Young Kings losing 3 on the rotation. Only and 1 FPS managed to get in safely.
very wounded, and there's still one more team that is yet to make their way inside the circle. You can see on the mini-map Versus pushing in from the north. Where can they send it? It's gonna be just throw a dart, pick a random building.
HP.
The information is not great, but 1 HP. Hitting something in your way is not a great look. Oath in the dead center, the downtown district, showing the hospitality that El Pozo residents have to offer. AKA not
panic.
much.
Artre, a little bit of a panic there as he got out of his Murado. Unfortunately, fell down to Troglodytes. So shots out in every direction here. Oath, meanwhile, still at the high ground in their compound, have actually been able to do damage into so many different teams that have driven in this way. You can see Throwables continuing to almost get players out, still waiting for those flushes. Meanwhile, Sonic's holding the southern edge of town. They've got this whole corner to play from. Don't really need to worry about the backside anymore. As the Blues closing in, they'll be able to walk it in from here. You can see as well with that ridgeline, also keeping a watchful eye across the open field there towards SSG. A TSM still with this dip are going to have to cross in that open area, potentially, depending on where this next circle goes, as we've got that picture-in-picture. Potentially, this pulls away, maybe have some open field, or are we going full city finish?
Full city it is. There's some
right.
openness here. This isn't the most dense urban location on either Miramar or Erangel. But yeah, this is a lot of buildings here. And so when you're SSU, when you're TSM, the two teams you pointed out are the teams that are not in the city. They're just holding out on yet to be developed suburbs. How are they going to get inside? We've seen a couple of strong locations, but Keenan getting a nice shot to Tiggleton. That's a great start. With H-Win now stuck on the revive, they could take this opportunity to move out, but I don't see any vehicles on the minimap.
Yeah, I mean, there's a potential here for gas cans to keep pressure onto Sonics, but you can see they're shooting right there as the gas cans pulled a vehicle aside is hopefully going to be enough to deter them from messing with the Sonics right now. But as long as Sonics have the peak on this angle for SSG, it's going to make things a little bit rough and rowdy. TSM also using this as an opportunity to transition at the same time, but it's unfortunate that they're picking the same angle to hit as Dodge, but Alo actually gets Halo Senpai down on the drive-by. That's one to play. Can they take this spot away as Dodge trying to cross the open field? Great headshot there by Vegas, takes down Kurt.
Great covering fire by Vegas there to get his team out of that, or at least what remains. You already saw Dodge, those two members, Halo Senpai and Finn, I believe, already retreated the second they saw the TSM vehicles. Unfortunately, Halo wasn't able to get out in time, but what a grenade! A follow-up by Vegas.
Oh, Poonage!
Trying to make sure, oh no, and now Dignitas are here. They saw this in the kill feed. They saw this with their own eyes in front of them, and they're trying to capitalize. It's just Luke remaining.
Dignitas stealing all these kills away from Dodge as well. And as you say, just Luke 12 remaining, which seems to be a recurring theme here for TSM in the late game. But that said, you can't discount Luke just yet. They've got plenty of smokes and potential here to res Alo. Dignitas actually pulled back from that position. You know, they cleaned it up. They got the kills. They kind of got what they wanted, but spreading themselves too thin, especially here in the late game. You know, I want to commend them for that, because I think that's where some teams start to fall apart, when they get a little too tunnel vision for that.
Space Station, they're able to move out a little bit, but still not in the circle. And oh, Lamplot's found the angle. Roth immediately taken out, deleted in a matter of seconds. And now what are the rest of SSG going to do? Answer is absolutely nothing. Devastation between both Dodge and Sonic's thrown in the way of SSG, and now they're looking back towards each other. It was only a temporary alliance. They're now enemies once again, but Dodge, they still have the safe angles to hold out in.
You know, I'm really impressed. Sonics have really managed to spread out here. You can see Mime actually getting a bit of distance ahead from the rest of Sonics. H-Win holding back to play anchored there, but all four members have been able to get damage, and multiple players in or around the city. Though they're only sitting on 2 kills, they've still managed to cut themselves a big piece out of the pie here in phase number 6. So we'll get that phase 7 circle in just a few seconds and see which of the potential 9 teams still alive that this could favor. And Troglodytes, you know, getting fancy with it. What works, but the circle not in their favor here.
Shifts away. Troglodytes have a nice entry into this area. I'm more worried about Dignitas and TSM. They're both going to have to fight each other out and then push through Dodge. Sonics also have a great position with the line that you called out just a few moments ago, but here comes the push from Dignitas. The grenades are coming in. This should signal to TSM that they're going to have an assault coming in from the north side. Flashes come in, grenades come in, trying to find the angles.
And Dignitas have already pushed once. They know that TSM is here. And you can see the throwables still out in force. Luke 12 actually has 4 Molotovs in the bag, so TSM make sure that they were packing, but right now waiting for that kind of presence through the doorway there. And see Alo making sure to catch any member off guard, but Punij has got an extra vehicle to lend a hand. 6 seconds until Blue starts to move. This fight has to pop off soon, though. And remember, Dodge still on the opposite side of us, waiting to receive whichever one of these teams crosses the threshold.
Oh, Lamb getting in the middle of this fight. I was about to compliment TSM on their management of choke points and not allowing Dignitas to push in, and instead it does push Dignitas away into the waiting arms of Sonic's Honey Badger already out. Shibari out. That's the entirety of Dignitas removed, just like SSG. You clown car into the east edge of the circle, east edge of the map, and you're going to get deleted.
I mean, Mime and Tiggleton making easy work of Dignitas there. You saw, they kind of saw the kill feed that pop off there between Dodge and TSM and said, now is go time. But with Luke 12 hanging back in the blue, trying to stay up alive, he's actually found a tiny little sliver of a ridge line here to lie prone, try and stay alive from, but more throwables coming out from Dodge. The blue doing its work. There's nothing left for Luke to do but die to the zone now as 7 teams, 20 left alive. And still, Troglodytas pushing their way into the zone right now. They've been fighting on and off with First since they entered the city. It looks like T-Plant's getting flashbang, got some damage in, but Kill Demo, his own nade knocked him out, but there you go. Versus falls, and Troglodytas should be able to recover Necro here.
Oh, I don't know. The blue's pushing in. I don't think the angle is going to be there for him.
Crawl faster. You can do it, Necro.
Hold shift. You crawl faster that way, I promise. Even Rusty's in the blue, I think, or just barely inside. Yeah, Troglodytas are still struggling, even with the push through Versus, or at least what remained of them. It's now Oath looking in that direction. You can see they're ready to capitalize on anyone that sticks their head out. There's a tiny little closet's worth of space, a Manhattan apartment worth of space that Troglodytas have to hang out in. And oh, what a great Molotov there from Bale.
There we go. I'm about to comment on the fact that Oath only had 1 kill thus far. Now it is 3, but they've had prime position in this circle. They were one of the first teams to really set out in the center of Pozo a couple of phases ago. But right now, where they don't really need to move. Dodge, meanwhile, playing the edge. Again, that was that warehouse we talked about TSM scouting out earlier and didn't quite get to take. Have 8 kills to show for themselves. Sonics, surprisingly as well, I think have stayed alive and kept good control, all things considered. But now Gas Cans finally angry with their neighbors, trying to evict him here as Adam lands a nade onto Tiggleton, looking for that flush, but it is being traded out right now.
Spotted out, H-Wing gets taken out, and Tiggleton and H-Wing are both confirmed there, leaving just Shrimzy and Mime. There's a little bit of trade damage back, but that's it for Dodge. Shrimzy did what's left of them. And now we're looking at the top 4 teams remaining right now. Sonic with 2, Young Kings with 1, but it's going to be Oath with 3, and Gascans with the Revive with 4 now as the main threats here. However, Oath are a little preoccupied with the last remaining member of Young Kings, going to be And1, who is able to entrench himself in the first floor of this building.
I mean, this is when things become crazy with those city finishes, as a solo still has the opportunity to potentially not only ruin somebody's day, but maybe even find a win out of this. But, I mean, Shrimzy and Mime, they've really been putting in work here for the Sonics, and you can't discount this team just yet, even in the late game. If there was ever someone who could pull off a miracle, this is a dynamic duo that could do so. But Gas Cans as a 4-man, Oath as a 3-man, potential for a second chicken dinner for one of these 2 teams if they can deal with the threats at hand, which right now, Oath, that threat is and 1 FPS, and Snakers is going to find that confirmation.
I was about to say, I hope they didn't forget about that grenade. Unfortunately, they're able to survive, have to use a little bit of meds, but good timing on taking And1 out. They sent all 3 down to make sure that even if he was able to get a knock, the chances of him confirming it were very, very low, and so they can stay as 3 up with the best chance of victory here in the late game. Oath v Gas v Sonics. Gascans definitely have the superior position and man count, but you can never count any of these players, much less pairings of Oath and Sonics out of this late game. The smoke's already coming out from each and every side here, but it's going to be a barrage bullet coming in from Gascan's location. Balefrost has been taken out by a grenade, and there's going to be a follow-up there to do some more damage.
I mean, as you say, Gas Cans with that location, the blue zone closing in, Oath really running out of opportunities of how to play this And Snaker's just gonna run it in, manages to miss all of that Molotov fire. We can turn off the X-ray for a second. You saw just how thick it was of smoke. Now you've got the 2v2 Oath versus Sonics. Gas cans can choose to keep their heads low. Let these two teams duke it out. Good damage by Mime onto members of Oath, but hasn't found the knock just yet. Meanwhile, Shrimzy back with the barrel out, waiting. Use that full auto spray on anyone who might peek their head out, potentially to catch off Snakers at this angle.
Oath threw in a really, really bad spot. That's not even including the Molotovs that's eating Snakers alive. It's all into reload right now. It looks like Gascans want to take him out. He's sending some shots through. Can't find a knock. Flash could give him the support that he needs, but it's Sonics that's overlooking this engagement, overlooking this fight, ready to capitalize, ready to take a win for themselves. Gascans have yet to finish off the last member of Oath. The high ground peak coming through from Hikerman. Finally, Oath are taken out, but what are they going to do against the Sonics?
We've got all four up right now, lying prone in the smoke. Mime actually has the best angle for the final end zone, but you can see still plenty of flashbangs. Did catch Mime on one. Mime is going to fall here. It's just up to Shrimzy, a 4v1. Can he spot Nikos? He gets one. Finds a second one. Spots out Greg Shot. That's two down. Looks for the confirmation onto two, but he needs to reload. Hikerman, Adam pushing up. He catches one, but ultimately it is traded back out. Gas cans pick up the chicken dinner here in match number 1.
Once he got that second, oh man, once Shrimzy got that second knock, you really started to believe he had them on the angle. But fortunately for Gas Cans, they pushed out with the proper way of taking that fight, which is a double peek, and made sure that even though he was able to get that third knock, did not get the full 4-piece. Mime, unfortunately, flashed out too much, stalled out too much to give him a lot of support. It was a really solid try from Sonics, but really it's going to be Gas Cans that held down in that area for the longest time, just waiting, just calling, beckoning the circle to come into their location, and they had all of the resources at their disposal to just remove any threat coming into their spot, their territory, their house.
I mean, as you say, they had all the resources kind of left. They took that push a little bit earlier, clearing out two members of the Sonics, and then they didn't really waste any more time chasing Mime and Shrimp. They pulled back to the location, held that beautiful concrete to kind of play out for the zone. And I think the best thing for really the situation at hand was kind of that Oath Sonics push near the end. It really hurt both those teams, but congrats on to Nikos for getting the confirmation onto the Oath as well. And I mean, it is a heartbreaking. This is not the first time that we've seen Shrimzy in a 1v4 situation almost turn it around in his favor. Sonics have gotten close to that chicken dinner time after time again, but just haven't been able to clinch it. So such a heartbreaking finish. You know that they've got to be reeling just a bit after that.
Listen, there are a number of teams that really struggle to find a way to get into El Pozo, but whenever there's a city finish like that, there's always going to be those teams. Even the best of teams can have a rough time. However, Oath did make it in. I'm saying that, right? Because Oath did have to make their own little send. And the fact that they were able to get into the late game as far as they did shows just how big of a threat this team is, even when they lost kickstart so early on in the game.
All right, well, that is going to be it for match number 1. We're going to take a very short, quick break. And when we get back, we'll hear more from the analyst desk before we go into match number 2. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back with some more PUBG.
Hey, what's up, everybody? My name's Daniel, but I go by Sharpshot in game. I'm from West Palm Beach, Florida.
This is Jeremy Travers. My gamer tag is Keenan, and I am from Conception Bay South, Newfoundland, Canada.
My name is Brandon. My gamer tag is Finna, and I'm from Vancouver, Canada.
Jaden. My gamer tag is Vegas, and I'm from San Diego, California.
Eu sou Luiz Felipe Franco. Meu nick em jogo é 22_Bisnaga. E eu moro em Porto Alegre, Rio Grande do Sul, no Brasil.
The best melee weapon in the game right now is the pan.
Sometimes you get shot in the back with the bolt-action rifle, and instead of completely dying, you have the pan on your back that just saves your life entirely and kind of wakes you up a little bit.
If it's not the pan, obviously, it would have to be the machete, just because I'm Cuban, and we use a lot of machetes in our day-to-day.
Meu veículo favorito é o Dacia, super potente, respalzinho, corre muito, muita gasosa, tranquilamente para rotar.
My favorite vehicle is the Roni on the new map, but as far as competitive vehicles go, I'm gonna have to take the hardtop UAZ. It's the most consistent when you're trying to accelerate up a hill.
My role on the team is I'm a gunner. I'm fragging whenever there's some knocked kills in the distance, I'm there with my DMR shooting at them.
Meu papel na equipe, dentro do jogo, acaba sendo de marcar mais as costinhas. Temos jogadores muito agressivos. Sempre fui muito agressivo também. Quando eu entrei no time, acabei me adaptando, percebendo que sempre tomava costa porque ninguém cuidava. Resolvi ir lá cuidar da parada. E agora eu faço esse papel dentro do jogo.
Just jumped out the plane, don't matter what we landed, cause I'm about to bring pain. You don't wanna push me, John Wick with the aim. Told my girl that I'm sleep, but I'm really on the game. Real talk, I put my all in this. It's the only game I play, man, it's obvious. Treat this game like it's really a sport. About to put your boy on the PUBG report.
Oh, he did! You absolute mad lad.
It's pans, crossbows, and explosives.
You wanna see that? Let's go.
Oh yeah! Let's get you leveled up. Damn, my setup sucks.
I did my time, or so I thought. Kill survivor one. Now it's your turn to hide.
Welcome back to the ESL PUBG Masters Americas, where it has been a story of 4, but we've got a whole lot more, as teams do seem to be getting better and better at taking their team to the end, and ultimately it pays off. My name's Toffees. I'm joined by Hypoc and Godspeed to break down all of the action. Guys, that one is exactly what we sort of talked about. Gas Cans got 4 to the end, and literally only won because of it. Shrimzy almost got the 4K, and if Gas had gotten there with 3, it'd be a very different day, Hypoc.
It would. It's heartbreaking to see. I think back towards a Crochet in the Asnaya circle where he almost pulled off the 1v. Actually landed the headshot on the last player as well, which I think in this scenario did a little bit of damage to the last player as well. So just missing out once again on the clutch scenario. Heartbreaking to see, but, you know, a well-earned victory from Gas Cans, right? These city endings are always difficult to traverse in terms of getting, you know, that early position inside, and then kind of that risk management factor of the game where it's kind of, you know, assessing when to come out of that building, what to clear, what edge to clear, and where to prioritize. So fair play to Gas Cans as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Great play by everyone there. In fact, we can take a look back at exactly how that match went from start to finish. Godspeed, time for highlights.
Ooh, highlights. And here we are, highlights indeed. Starting off with a little space station action. I'm pretty sure we lost a member of space station early. I believe it was, no, that was Oath. Sorry, that was Kickstart. I apologize. different members. But the beginning of this game was pretty tame. Here it is. This is what I was talking about.
Yeah, this was the one. Yeah,
it was Kick going down. Yeah, I always confuse space station and Oath. You know, there's. But Fumba, man, I mean, this is a team that we've talked about numerous times. They got in a little bit of early trouble here this time with Veritas. Obviously, that wasn't ideal. Space Station managed to survive quite a bit on the outside. Actually, they're one of the few teams on the outside of the city as we move into this game a little more that survived. I know TSM was also on the outside of Pozo there on the north side. They tried to rotate in. They also got wiped out. But this was a really wild game once it started to center in on Pozo.
Yeah, it was. We actually lost a lot of players, I guess, anticipating, you know, the option of it not bouncing towards the city, I think, on that phase 4 shift. So lots of casualties in rotation, lots of teams that were kind of in weird positions just like this, right? TSM and 22 sending shots back and forth there, exchanging utilities, just on a dip on kind of the outskirts of that field. And again, you can see TSM did manage to make it this far, but I think after this engagement, it's down to 2, if I'm not mistaken. Elo and Luke 12, and then we saw something from Dignitas, which we saw yesterday as well. They got into a position towards the late game, and we had this full send to like the opposite side of the circle. I'm sure we're about to see it momentarily, but watching it, it's interesting to see Dignitas opt not to fight a couple of times now in these scenarios. They just go for these mad desperation sends.
And that's the thing. They had the ability to at least move forward and play on that position. Instead, they decided to send it towards a spot that TSM just earlier had been basically all but wiped. And the other thing that was a little unfortunate as well is Sonics. I mean, we watched the Sonics here. They had 4 up going into, I believe, phase 7, and then they had this kind of split to potentially hold out Dodge, but Gas actually had an incredible position to hold out Dodge as well. So you could argue if Sonics actually consolidated. I mean, look at the valiant effort from Shrimzy. He almost got this down to a 1v4, but
down to half HP.
Yeah, and Mime going down there on the rafter was unfortunate as well. I think there was a lot of flashes though that prevented him from really making a play there. Ultimately, it's Gas Cans, Pac. I mean, Gas Cans, say what you will about the way they play, but they are kind of one of the teams right now that most consistently makes it, at least in this event, to the end with all 4 members up.
Yeah, and the other thing to note here, obviously, I mean, look at that kill spread. It's very rare we see it that evenly spread across the top 8 at least, and I think that's a byproduct of exactly what we're talking about. A couple of weird engagements in terms of rotations, and I got to say, a few more teams than maybe I was expecting with those first few circles, banking on it not ending up towards Pozo. So it's interesting to sit back and look at those in terms of the bigger picture, but yeah, exciting game nonetheless.
You got to give a little love to Dodge. They showed up in the damage dealers, 8 kills, still going out 5th place. Let's take a look at the overall standings, though, because, hey, we're getting almost after this next game, we're halfway through this week of play. So Gas Cans, 2 chicken dinners and 25 kills, Oath in 2nd place with 1 and 41. Those guys have been racking up the Ks like crazy, and it goes on down from there. A little bit of a comparison here, guys, between Gas Cans, who have been less consistently finishing in the top 4 compared to Oath, but still have more chicken dinners, different style of play.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it before. Gas Cans seem to much rather take their time and really make sure that they're rotating into positions that they can rotate out of. And we heard Adam talk about it as far as rotations and what position they try to play for. They're always looking at the next step, and I feel like that's something that Gas Cans actually does really well that a lot of teams aren't, because we see kind of these desperation crashes coming out from some of the other teams, and they're just kind of, they get there and they're stuck there, right? Gas Cans is always looking like, look, if we crash this point, what can we do to move forward for the next one, even if circle shift is bad? What are our next options? And I think because of that, they've been finding a lot of success as far as getting all 4 members up into the late game.
And it seems like they have very much embraced this idea, Hypoc, because if you look at their results, it's like 1st place, 15th, 7th, 14 or something, 1st again. But when they get into those final circles, like you said, it's always with 4. And when you see them get a fight early, in the old days, I would see people drive off, right? Lick would be like, jettison the Sampty, push forward. Now, though, it's like the fight starts and all of Gas Cans like hit the brakes, spin the cars and say it's all or nothing. And I think, do you think a lot of teams are trying to get that idea of like avoid if we can, but fight if we must?
Well, I'm really glad actually you've spun the question that way, because I was about to come back towards Dignitas. I was talking about this being the second scenario where we've seen them actually pull away from taking a fight, and it's this mad blind send basically toward. And don't get me wrong, there's always obviously variables and different bits of information that we don't see that the teams are reacting off and whatnot. But it's just surprising with a team like Dignitas and how we've seen them really frag their way out of bad spots. That we've seen this twice now in 2 days where they don't gain anything out of that sort of play. There's no universe where there isn't somebody playing A, the outside of that red brick, and B, the edge of the field, right? There just isn't. So why not, as 4, which they were still 4 even when they were trying to slip away from TSM, try and take a team fight, crash towards the red brick, do something that has at least a higher success ratio.
Well, specifically Sorry to interrupt, but I was going to say, because they basically knew kind of the layout with TSM going right in front of them, right? So they knew that was a very contentious place to land, and they decided to send it around that, even though TSM haven't even been completely wiped. So, I mean, I agree with Pak. It just seems kind of uncharacteristic of them not to just at the very least take a fight, because we've seen, at least over the course of this event, they've been incredibly impressive taking those fights.
Look at that kill count last week. Like that stands out to me. And I think back to the last game of last week where they had a real chance to come through and win that. So that's the thing. It's bothered me now. I'm hoping they can turn this around, but it stood out to me.
Absolutely. As a reminder, in case you guys aren't looking at the kill counts like we are, it was 69 kills last week. Very nice on their part as they put up some big numbers. I came to play. But ultimately, it's about closing those games out, making it work. A team, again, and we're just going to briefly remind everyone that we expect them to have huge kill counts, the Sonics. But that last game, again, Godspeed, they get to the final circle or two with 4. I don't want to dig into it right now. We don't have time. The game is starting. But the reality is this. If one more person had been alive facing off against gas cans, they get that chicken dinner. So who's to say? I know that they're still knocking. That door is waiting to open, and the Sonics have hit it so many times, it has to be ready to burst. This is the game when it happens, as we go now to match number 2, our last Miramar of the day with Clover and the Cammy D.
You heard it, the last Miramar of the day. We're getting ready to get into that, and the desk gave us some pretty good points, but I want to point out one interesting fact about the Sonics, Cammy, and that is that they have broken exactly 500 windows so far.
That is the stat that we care about the most. That is the most important stat, and I am only being slightly sarcastic because I hate there's zero value to windows. They mess up grenade trajectories, they cloud your vision, they make it like it's ugly, it's gross. Now if the game wanted to introduce like a Kleenex item where you can just boom, 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 then maybe we can talk. But at the moment, it's I see a window, I break it. I see a tire, I pop it. And so I always like to see that happening. And so stupid. Oh my god.
You know, I'm one of those people too, right? When you see a car, you drive past it, you just gotta like pop out the tires, and then later you drive past that same car, and you're like, oh yeah, a car. Fuck, the tires are gone. But that said, guys, we are in game. The plane, very similar to El Pozo again. Kind of not great for some of those teams that like to land out Los Leones, and that's going to cluster a few teams together. That said, though, I mean, if this goes El Pozo a second time, you got to think there's going to be some teams that might try to do something different that didn't quite work out for them this time.
We do see a little bit of clustering already on the north side. No chance in Fiumba. They're not going to be landing on the same position. I don't know if that was something that they made the call once they were both in the air. It's going to be a Campo Militar drop. I know Toffee's going to like this one. I don't know if he still does it anymore, but like a year ago, he had like a very specific set rotation path on Campo Militar that he can loot through, at least as a solo, very, very fast. So we'll see how quickly Fiumba can get out of that location, because they're going to have to move. We saw where that first circle was. It was southwest, somewhat center. It wasn't a hard southwest circle, but it was still leading towards that direction. Attrition dead center, basically that whole area between Chumacera and Bocado, that's like the main focal point, which in stark contrast to the previous game is wide open. There are some hills and stuff around the perimeter, but we're not looking at like dead center, that El Pozo mountain like we saw last game.
Well, and, you know, again, I mean, with this drop that Fiumba is choosing to take, that is going to put them into the zone quite a bit late. And we do know that in some cases, not so bad on the first phase, but you are going to lose out on some of that important information about your fellow teammates rotating into the zone. So once they finish out here, should be able to take that southern wrap, hang out onto the east coast there for maybe kind of coming south of Leonis. That could be a good potential play for there. Dignitas, though, this time doesn't have to take that late, long wrap rotation into zone. They're just on the edge here, so they'll have plenty of time to loot up and get a prime position into zone.
Ooh, yeah, they won't have to take it terribly late, even though they are still figuring out where they're going to drop. They're still making their way towards El Azahar sort of area. However, I wouldn't be surprised if they did still make a wrapping rotation. We're looking at a lot of teams that are going to be right in between them and their circle, or even in those initial places they'd want to go to in the circle. Space Station Gaming, on the other hand, they're already in the circle. They already have a lot of area. In fact, they're moving away from their drop position because they were able to land so fast. They're already on the way out. Roth has scouted the area ahead of them. They're not too far from Acreche and Trogloditas, where he has posted up. but it's in a safe position, a safe area, and they're getting ready to try and actually settle down their roots, because this is the team that in a lot of games, not necessarily the previous game, but still a lot of different games, has really struggled to keep a lot of players up into the late game. And so hopefully they're here early, they can really commit onto it.
Mime actually kind of peeking around close to a Attrition. I wasn't sure if he spotted him out just yet or just looking for their position. I mean, the thing that always worries me a little bit when we have circles like this, Sonics like to loot Picado early, and then they typically push out to the west. So when you have Picado perfectly centered here, the faster that teams start to take out these positions in or around the city, the more that starts to cut off for where Sonics like to go once they leave town. So Mime pushing out a little bit further in this position can give them access to those compounds, but it does cut short some of the other areas that we do know that they typically like to play with Attrition pushing in.
We already have Shrimsy actually towards the east of Picado. I don't know how much more area they'd want to take. You do see Tiggleton coming to join up with Mime. But they have such a premier position and able to get a nice split amongst themselves. And when you're as mechanically gifted, talented, blessed as Sonics are, I'm not quite so nervous of them being in two entirely different locations of these two pairings. But actually, Tiggleton and Mime, yeah, they're moving out from that barn, and they're going to take this red brick compound here.
This is a good compound to start. I mean, again, really, until we start getting that second and third phase, it's not going to be too terribly important. But if you're a team and you get a good central position to start and you have that all game, that's great. So, you know, we start to kind of see rest of the teams know at this point, we're 5 minutes in, Sonics should be out of Picado. And so TSM fearlessly charging through, knowing that they can backfill this position.
Yeah, they found a clean slate, clean area to go into. I'm sure they must have scouted this out, but also just being aware of Sonic's own tendencies. Yeah, already spotting out, already trying to see where Sonics have moved to, see if they can't capitalize on any separated individual, seeing that it is, at least to their knowledge, clear. Might have them start questioning where Sonics are going to be if they're not at, well, this barn location. But still, it's a really nice grab there by TSM. And I'm mostly certain that the Eastern duo with Shrimsy and H-Win, that they spotted that rotation in by TSM. So Sonics should be aware of everything that's been sort of bubbling up around them, percolating in their zone.
I actually kind of, well, I mean, we really look at this, the fact that Shrimsy and H-Win went really far wide for Sonics, right? They're kind of hedging their bets, the potential that this could shift very far to the east. And you can see Attrition even kind of have a little bit of a 2-2 split from that compound as well, as whether or not this could maybe go closer towards Monty or swing back down towards Los Leones. Oath sending everybody just to the edge of town. A bit similar. They actually have one hanging back, but Fiumba have left their Campo Militar. They've got plenty of vehicles, loot to show for it, and now working their way into zone. Now, they coming in the backside of Young Kings and Dignitas, so could be potential for some edge fighting if they're not careful with their entry point to zone. But TSM creeped up very quick here onto Sonics, and Alo actually is going to get a knock onto Mime. Finds a headshot, gets him down to half HP. Doesn't quite have the angle for the flush. Is going to attempt to do some extra damage there with that nade, and actually does find the finish there. So that's one more member of Sonics taken out early. And I mean, we had all that conversation about the importance of a 4-up. So now Sonics having to play the rest of this game as a 3.
Listen, I wasn't saying it, but I was thinking it. There's no way that Alo was able to have the angle on the grenade. I felt like that was a long shot, but listen, never. You always have to believe when TSM have utility in their hands. Immediately taken out, and now the split that Sonics had is no longer a 2-2, it is a 2-1, which means Tiggleton is in a very vulnerable position. But over here, we do see Dodge pushing in from the west side. It's becoming quite populated, these areas around that field that TSM and Sonics, or at least TSM and Tiggleton, have taken over. Currently having their eyes set on SSG as well as 303. A couple of shots coming out from Vegas. Landed some good ones last game, trying to go for more this time around.
And the El Pozo just barely into play again. Remember, Gas Cans got their chicken dinner second of the weekend, just right outside this exact position the previous match. But right now, coming in from the north and choosing to play the edge. This is kind of the strategy that we've seen them play, low and slow, keeping their head down, really not having to worry about watching their backside and just playing the edge as long as they can until they can find themselves a nice center position after that mid-game spot. So as gas cans continue to traverse the edge right now, we shouldn't really expect to see too much engagement for them, at least not until phase 4.
Ooh, Flux spotted someone. For a brief second, No Chance made his way on his radar, immediately finding some high ground to get a better angle to defend with his Mini 14, but No Chance there. Going different directions. Shots coming out from Young Kings is making No Chance a little insecure, it seems, about how they're going to approach, but they're finding an angle that breaks line of sight. But Young Kings have a pretty wide spread, so good on No Chance to stop here and scout it out and make sure that there is no major threat in front of them. Make sure that Flux wasn't just there to try and shepherd them into his teammates' waiting arms.
Ooh.
Flux on his own right is actually trying to leave from this position, so a lot of long-range shots coming up from No Chance, a little bit of damage, but nothing that he can't easily brush off.
Yeah, and we saw Flux, a couple other members there of the Young Kings took some damage from the shooting for No Chance. Meanwhile, Dignitas continuing their kind of long way into zone. Now, they have pushed through Los Leones, and JR here for Team Veritas a bit close to Shinboy. It actually looks like some long-range shots out in this direction. It's kind of giving him a bit of some information. It is Troglodytas, as well as Veritas Danny G that are helping him out here. Meanwhile, Circle getting ready to close. We're going to see how this one plays out. Actually, it's going to center itself up on Chumas there as it takes a hard shift there to the west. The teams like Fiumba, Oath, Dignitas, Sonics, 22, Young Kings, and No Chance all need to work their way into zone. You can see Dignitas wasting absolutely no time.
Yeah, they're wrapping in from the south side, which is relatively free. They should know that south of Chumacera is mostly free, if not always free, when a circle like this, judging where all the other teams are going to be coming from. However, it is a very difficult spot to try and loot up. Shinboy does find a crate, and it has not been claimed yet, so he finds himself a nice Groza.
Ooh.
That could be very useful if they can make their way to the late game especially. But on this rotation, though, it's going to be a very, very difficult path. The terrain is not very kind to vehicles, so they're going to hope that no one else is in the area, or else the terrain is going to slow their vehicles down. It could make them very vulnerable to anyone potentially lying in wait.
Ooh. Unfortunate play here for Balkan. Actually gets caught out. No Chance dropping him off just at the doorstep there of 22. So both of these two teams backfilling TSM, who backfilled Sonic. So very busy out here in Picado, but TSM on their way to their next position have spotted out 303, and some good shooting from 303 is going to keep that pressure, but TSM not giving up the spot just yet and want to fight for it. I think they've read that this might be a potential split here for 303, but right now as they reposition their cars, H11JR trying to keep their Bronco as healthy as possible.
Kickstart trying to deal more damage to Sonics. We saw H would go out in the kill feed, so this split that the Sonics seemed so confident in the early game, well, it's just been picked apart, and now Shrimsy is driving through dangerous territory. Tiggleton not far behind him. The question is, do they have a spot in mind that they're going to land, or is this another desperation send?
I mean, you got to make the play that you can at hand, and Tiggleton trying to close that gap, stay up alive with Shrimsy as they push themselves center zone, and you can see it. I mean, again, we talked about when the circles get close to Picado, Sonics have these buildings that they really like to play from, and when the circle centers itself up here, all of their priority positions are taken right now as they're being shot at by SSG, Dodge, Attrition, 303, even Troglodytas right up the hill from here. Every place that Sonics would like to put down is pretty much potentially taken at this spot. But again, as we've seen, Shrimsy, a 3v1, he can pull it off. Tiggleton, a 3v1, he can pull it off. So you can't discount these guys, even here at phase 2 when all of hope looks lost. But right now, Sharp Shot, another man that has done wonders against full teams, digging into Shrimsy.
You can just tell how out of sorts Sonics are. Shrimsy just barely able to stay alive, not just SSG, but also Troglodytas with some angles on him as he was trying to find what dip exactly was safe. He's going to heal up and have to back away. I hope Tiggleton is the one that's calling him to his area. But I don't know if he's going to make it there. Sharpshot able to leave the building, find an angle, and that is Shrimzy now finally dropped. Tickleton is not an area to safely pick him up. Sharpshot taking a lot of damage as he retreats away from Akreche, but he is still able to get that knock. Whether the kill is stolen away from him or not is actually secured by his teammate in Keenan. But nonetheless, it is still a big threat taken care of, as now Sonics is just Tickleton, and we're still less than 20 minutes in.
I mean, if Tickleton can keep his head down, find it up to the late game, there's still always the chance, right, that he could pull it off. And as the circle arches back towards Chumacera, a lingering threat of a potential second Miramar urban finish is at hand. And Chumacera has that high and low grounds with teams right now. Dignitas up with the high ground, Veritas with the low, and everybody else just working their way into zone here as Dignitas putting the pressure onto Fiumba as they find themselves right along the edge. But Dignitas not ready to share just yet as Punich coming in the backside here of Fiumba, trying to find another angle here.
Ooh, he might be trying to group up with his teammate on the high ground just in front of him. Fortunately, he's on his bicycle. So it's going to be the most elusive target if Fiumba did happen to have an angle, but it seems Punich is able to avoid all of that. And now Dignitas have a really solid position, especially trying to gatekeep Fiumba out of Chumacera. And fortunately for them, all the rest of the fighting is going to be on the northern part of this. Veritas now trying to fight against Oath, who pushed it onto their location. It did temper them away just for a brief moment. But we have a few other teams that still need to cross that road that cuts between Monte Nuevo and Picado. We got 303, we got TSM, we got 22, and No Chance. And Akreche is going to be lying in wait, but Fiumba on the rotation. Now trying to leapfrog in front of Dignitas and just go in towards Chumacera proper.
Yeah, I mean, keep your vehicles healthy, park them inside the buildings if you've got it, and get yourself as center position as possible, taking that chance that this might stay on the town. But right now, gas cans, a bit of a kerfuffle here with VS. It is traded out, and Hikerman is just going to be left behind. Adam taking no more chances here and just trying to keep himself up and rejoin the rest of the team. But, I mean, the rest pretty far split, actually far down to the south. And wasn't sure if this was a late rotation from these two members or if it was the potential of a split even. But either way, Gascan's trying to work on keeping 3 up. And you can see, though, Young Kings wrapping in this similar area. So some cover fire from Nikos and Greg shot should be enough to keep Adam pretty healthy. It is actually going to be a headshot there by Nikos that gets and 1 FPS knocked down.
Great covering fire. Young King should still have the angle, should still have the ability to get the revive. But while that's happening, Gascans are here, able to set up, be in the perfect positions that they want to defend, because Young Kings still need to push their location. You can see that they're not yet in the next phase. But over here, TSM, difficulty coming out of the Staccato fields themselves. They have this scout in front of them. It's going to be Penta on the bike, but everyone else is in this vehicle, driving through some very, very dangerous territory. Luke's trying to set on some fire to try and deter Akreche's positioning, but now it's going to be Oath up next. And oh, that tire pump is really bad. Tiggleton finds Penta as well, so it's gone from bad to worse for TSM.
I mean, again, it just shows the importance of rotating at the right time and finding that position early on, especially on Miramar with these open areas. You can see just Snakers and so many other players just have perfect line of sight right now. And all of these players wrapping in. Trisk is going to fall to zone. No chance actually losing 2 here, but RDS is going to flush out Alo on the wrap. So I mean, it's a bloodbath here on the edge between Akreche, TSM, and No Chance.
I don't even know if TSM's location is still in the circle, but you know who else is not in the circle? No Chance. No ability for them to push on through. They waited just a little bit too long, but we're still looking at a lot of uncomfortable teams. Akreche and TSM, this fight is gonna break out. There's no way for either team to retreat off of this. Especially because Akreche, they love to fight oh so much. TSM are backing away, but they'll only be backing away until Oath's line of sight. They have the cover of smoke for now, but Purdy is stuck there, hiding behind the truck. That's all he has.
And you see, Ruben actually is going wide, trying to find a good angle here onto Kurt. Meanwhile, Tiggleton still alive and trying to do some damage onto 303, but spotted out by a member of Akreche. So every time he's taking a peek, he is really putting himself at risk to be taken out early again. Remember, Sonic's right now, 26 kills, but still no chicken dinners. Akreche taking this one very carefully onto TSM. And amazingly enough, Luke 12 actually sent it across the street, trying to minimize some of that line of sight that Oath had at the top of the ridge line. So If Kurt can close the gap here on this open field, that might take away one of the few threats that TSM's kind of been facing in this position, not just versus Attrition, but from Veritas and Oath as well.
I'm shocked that Attrition actually left that fight. They don't have a lot of area to play there. And with TSM stuck in the position that they're at least to me, it seems like easy pickings, but maybe they disagree. Over here, though, And1 is trying to defend against Gas Cans. They're actually able to get in front of Gas Cans' position, but the fight is gonna break out no matter what. And1 is able to secure the kill that he has. Both Greg and Niku's has been taken down. 2 kills for him and his squad.
Honey
But
Badger.
Dignitas are here to try and capitalize, try and pick up what they can from this position. Utility comes in. This frag grenade could land inside that shack.
Hey, Honey Badger really need to take care of this positioning that the Young Kings have. If they want to take out this whole corner to play from, Adam from the Gas Cans is going to move on, not waste much time from here. And that actually looks like the Young Kings pulling back away. Meanwhile, VS Troglodytes fighting right on top of each other for the high ground on the edge of zone. A good trade coming out from both of these teams. It actually looks like the Troglodytes might have to play a little bit harder for that spot.
Luke is now the only one left for TSM, but back here onto the southwest. A great grenade by Adam onto Dignitas. They were so focused in on Young Kings that they forgot to consider whoever remained for the Gas Cans. It's just Adam. However, he was able to get those 2 kills, but now his position is known, and the rest of Dignitas are going to be tracking him, tracking his movements as best as they can. The circle does fall away from that area, and it is wide open in the center. Polar opposite from the game we just saw in the city. This is outside of SSG's compound. There's not a lot of hard cover left. It's all soft terrain. It's all rolling rocks, rolling hills.
I mean, the potential that this could be SSG's game to lose. Tiggleton, though, has been taken out. Attrition have been fighting with them time after time, and they should be able to get this res off there for Ruben. Meanwhile, Dignitas finally pushed their way into Chumacera. Nade's out here towards Fiumba, but again, trying to clear their edge, giving them the south to play off of. DraftKings spotted for just a second by Poonage, is not going to catch him by surprise here. Poonage flushing that one out, tries to take down another member, but it is traded. Sparking, waste no time though. Fiumba falls here, and the res should pop off. Dignitas right now sitting on 4 kills, but have lost 2 members in the process, and Adam still alive. Remember, Adam took down the other 2 members of Dignitas.
Ooh, trying to do what he can here. Oath is now pushing in, and oh, this is dangerous. Looked like a good grenade, but Oath are making sure to spread out so they're not caught out by a single piece of utility. And the utility that is just being fired right back onto Luke's position. He's gonna have to go big, but oh, the Molotov is shot out of the air. The second one is going to go on the vehicle. He's able to find the angle with the mini, but still not a lot of damage, if any at all. The shots just aren't landing for him. And who knows how long till Attrition are going to be curious neighbors and peek their neck over towards this location.
We saw Kickstart actually reposition his vehicle to try to give him another angle here onto Luke 12, but still damage traded out. Kickstart actually knocked down by Luke 12, and he is going to try to heal, but it is phase 5, the blue zone is going to do some damage, but we've seen Luke 12 pull off wonders in the blue before. Right now, just focused on getting any kills he can onto members of Oath who are outside of the zone. Some spray and pray into the smoke, but it's going to be Roth ultimately by SSG. It takes him out. TSM falling now in 9th place. Meanwhile, back to the south, Chumacera. Dignitas still holding the pressure off from Veritas. Gas Cans have been taken out for now. But it came at quite a bit of a cost. So Dignitas, again, down to just 2 members, struggling just a bit here on the edge.
Rotating the vehicles around, trying to figure out how they're going to push through this Veritas area. Veritas are quite spread out, but they have a good spread of control here. They have that last player on the south, Ethan, trying to hold up Dignitas, and everyone else, or at least 2 of them, positioned towards Oath to try and keep them from walking over this big open area. But really, it's going to be SSG that is stalling Oath out. So Veritas are backing away from this. They're not committing too heavily.
And there we go. The zone has shifted, keeping on SSG's compound. Veritas also with a great position into zone. But now you've got Dignitas versus what's left of Dodge, Vegas here, Attrition from the north, and Oath that all need to work their way into the zone. And again, I mean, you kind of have these big dips and a little bit of an open ridgeline and not much else outside of SSG's compound to play from. So as the smoke's coming out right now, Vegas working his way into zone. Attrition keeping the pressure onto Versus as they're going to get Ropo knocked and fleshed out.
7 kills for Attrition right now. They're starting to build a bit of a hot streak as they push in from the edge from the north side. Trying to track Vegas, trying to track the rest of Versus. But that smoke wall is going to give them at least a little bit of safety. But here is Oath pushing on in. They're able to find a little bit of a hole, find a gap in the defense between SSG and Veritas. But how many players can they stack up into the single position? Back on Attrition, shots are coming in. Devastation is coming in, not just onto Dodge, but onto Versus. There are a few stragglers remaining from that team. They might be able to get the revive off, but no, that bleed out is happening way too fast. T-Plens goes down.
Down to 7 teams, 22 players, and Poonage right now getting a knock onto Lobes. The damage still coming out onto Veritas. And this throwable might be enough to get the confirmation. Danny G actually is going to try and catch him off guard. So that nade fell short, didn't do any damage. And you can see now, Oath actually has an angle onto this. Shots out from Snakers. Pressure on both sides now on to Veritas. Oath is not going to keep their head down on this one at all. They want to engage and hold out this angle for both these teams.
This is the problem with trying to play too safe. Veritas pulled away from Oath, but they didn't full crash onto Dignitas, and now they are caught in between both of those teams. Potential revive coming on through. Oath and Dignitas have now spotted each other out, which could give Veritas a brief moment of respite. Great shots by Relo. Gonna knock Poonage down. It's all under sparking for Dignitas to make a miracle happen from his position.
Nades out from Attrition as well, keeping that pressure onto Versus, but Ruben finds that last one. So 6 teams now remain, 20 players left alive. The circle closing in, 30 seconds till we move forward to phase 7. And you can see every ridge line right now has a team pushed up against it to try and stay safe from the eyes of those around them. But both right now sitting on 5 kills, not letting up from either Dignitas or Veritas. They're keeping very mindful of the rest of the teams at hand around them.
The revive did come through. Dignitas are still standing with both Sparking and Poonage. The problem is they don't have a lot of area to maneuver around in. And Oath are keeping a watchful eye, but Veritas aren't! Poonage is able to find, at least for a brief moment, a body lying out in the open, unable to capitalize. Perhaps caught him a little off guard. Surely no one's going to reveal themselves that cleanly. But that player has now moved, hiding behind a vehicle, and the smokes are going to start to come out for Dignitas. The circle doesn't disfavor them too much, but of course any movement could mean death for them. They need the cover of that utility, or else it's just going to tear them apart.
I mean, Oath really just at this point needs that southern control, and the big thing that's keeping it from happening is this Veritas Dignitas kind of traffic down to their south. Now, Dignitas is not in the zone, and Veritas should be able to help Oath out and clear this out. But across that ridgeline, Oath can't really take that peak without being punished. Meanwhile, Attrition being punished themselves as they try to wrap around to the zone, crashing straight into Young King's compounds. Kush goes down. Viz King actually is flushed back out, and 1 FPS, spotting out the remaining members. Ooh, sees the feet, actually is going to get a shot there, and Attrition going out into 6th place. So Young Kings have full access now to the western side, and amazingly enough, Dignitas just barely found a spot into zone. Sparking, though, you can see is really badly damaged. His helmet, his vest, everything is just completely broken, but now he's in throwable range.
Yeah, that's the big threat here, isn't it? Been flashed out, utility out, mollied out. Fortunately, Oath are on another fight of their own, trying to keep eyes both on this south fight between Veritas and Dignitas, but also SSG, who are having to leave their own hard cover, leave their compound, but Sparking is going big, trying to run to the rock, not going to be allowed as Lobes takes him out. We're looking at the top 4 from this game, once again, including Oath. But can SSG, Veritas, or Young Kings take the win for themselves? Oath are the only team that have 4 up, though. So that's going to give them a huge advantage with this, but they are going to need to take care of SSG, or else Veritas could find a way to set their wrath upon them, pushing towards the northeast corner. The push is coming in from Oath.
Oh, great knock. Oath finds 1. Balefrost actually picks up a 2nd, looks for the confirmation, but Keenan still up. Doing some work right now into members of Oath. They're trying to take this as slow as possible and actually get a helping hand there from Young Kings and 1FPS to take care of Keenan. It is now a 3v2v2 as Veritas still trying to share this hillside from Oath. Actually take down 2 members. Lobes with a nade, Snakers and Kickstart have been taken down, and this is the time to strike. Veritas wasting none of it as they continue to bombard Oath with utility. This time, Danny G seeing what he can do, but being very mindful of not being within gun range of Young Kings.
You can tell Veritas, they're trying to finish off Oath, and it's going to be another grenade by Ethan to do some more heavy damage, but they are not forgetting about Young Kings. They're leaving Danny G there on the side to make sure that no one is wrapping in on the south, but Billfrost is going to try and get Snakers up. If they can play as 2, this still gives them a passing chance. And Veritas have yet to fully roll over that hill and commit because they saw the damage that Young King's previous angle had on Oath's position. He's going to hold on with the spread, have Danny G playing the off angle, and I'm really liking this push that he is employing right now. Unable to spot Flux just yet. Not sure of his angle onto And1, but you know once the fight breaks out between the main core of Veritas and everyone else on the field, he is going to be in a position to strike and defend.
I mean, Flux hanging back and playing the off angle there for Young Kings as And1 anchored themselves out centered position. Is going to find a flush there onto members of Oath. And that's kind of just how this is going to have to play out now. Veritas can completely turn their attention onto Young Kings, who have been split back up. So a 3v2 advantage. But if Veritas can find just a single knock, that will really turn the cards in their favor here.
They spotted out Flux. That's at least a little bit of information. And the shots from And1 also should have revealed to Veritas where every member of Young Kings are hanging out at. And so you can see Danny G is now up, trying to peek around. His position is no longer a vulnerable one now that they know where everyone is going to be peeking from. If Flux can take him out, that is still going to bring it to a 2-on-2. But Danny G also has a Mini 14 of his own. Waiting to see if he can't find an angle. Or perhaps, well, no utility in play for him. He only has a single smoke to use. But we see where the game is going to end on. And1 does happen to be the closest member there. But I do happen to favor Veritas' own little spread position as they slowly creep towards the center and the end game.
I mean, as we're going to a phase 9, the center dot really close to Young Kings, there's a potential here that the teams could cluster themselves back up. And as you say right now, Veritas does have this spread working out for them right now, and Young Kings could potentially find and knock one member, but it could come at the cost of a trade right now as Flex actually getting a little bit of damage into Ethan. Hasn't found a knock just yet, but trying to cluster up towards that center position. If they can get Danny G and Lopes together, they might be able to do something that those Molotovs there, and And1 still getting some damage. It's connecting, but no knocks just yet. It is going to opt for one of those Molotovs onto Ethan. Keep that push coming as the blue, keeping pressure, is going to push them back to have to rotate back into each other, potentially lining them up and giving Young Kings a chance to turn this back in their favor.
Good Molotovs, keep Ethan pushed back. And now Young Kings have actually taken a really solid control of the center of the circle now that Flux has joined up with And1. Veritas are still going to be backs against the blue, have yet to really make any solid movement forward. And it's mostly because once they crest over this ridge, it's going to be open season. Flux and And1 still have a piece of terrain to play behind. This is where the smokes are going to start to come into play for Veritas. They need to take away that vision advantage that Young Kings are going to have onto them if they want to find a way to get towards the end game. 11 kills already for Young Kings, 3 more up. If they can take them out, it's going to be the game for them.
You can see the flashbangs out right now into the smoke as And1 FPS finds a knock onto Ethan, but it's immediately traded. Flux goes down. Danny G picks it up and actually gets a second knock there. And 1 FPS just needs to take care of Lobes. It's down to a 1v1 here between Veritas and Young Kings. Potential for a chicken dinner, and it's going to be Young Kings that get it in the end. 14 kills as they win our final Miramar match of the evening.
It was that ridge. It was that ridge that allowed And1 to be able to peek up and over every single time. You saw Lopes. He had no option but to just stand there out in the open, because if he tried to fall back, he would have gone back into the blue that was slowly closing in onto the play zone. All And1 needed to do is just constantly peek over, get the headshot lined up, and finish off the game. So even with the man advantage, Young Kings with the train were able to secure that game with a solid amount of kills.
Yeah, and I mean, that pressure that Veritas had to deal with for so many teams there on the East. You had Dignitas, you had Oath, that really took a lot of their resources going into that final fight. So I think that's one of the best performances that Veritas has had in a late game thus far during the ESL Masters. And really seen a lot of growth from them. They took that one slow, they took that one methodical, and it was almost their game to have. But again, as you say, and 1 FPS, Flux really putting the work there in the end for Young Kings to pull out that victory on top.
Yeah, and a really good game for Young Kings as well. They definitely needed this. They haven't been the shiniest team, shall we say. I believe they actually were in 15th place coming into the day, so not looking good for them on kills or wins, but still, if they're able to, we love this word, don't we, commentators? Momentum, really build some momentum, really build some confidence, you know, all these good things as they go into these last 2 Erangel games. We could see some more great things out of them, because if you get a game with this many kills, it is hard to argue that it's a fluke.
Yeah, if anything, I think it was a fluke that Young Kings hadn't been performing up to the level that we've expected of them up until now. This is the most amount of kills that they've not only had in a game, but in a day. So it's great to see that growth from them. But like you say, the key word here is momentum. Can they take that into Erangel as we move forward to the last 2 matches of the evening? And then, of course, tomorrow being the last day for them to potentially do some work on that leaderboard, maybe find a second chicken dinner, get more kills, get themselves up there on the leaderboard points. Because remember, there's more than just money on the line. There's also PGC points. And Young Kings, one of those teams right now that are chasing.
A lot of teams are chasing this one. You got to call it out, Sonics. Still a very, very rough game for them, a rough game for a number of teams that we're still hoping. But who knows? We're still waiting to see if some teams can turn around. We're only halfway through this weekend. There is still some room, but that gap, that timeline is starting to close.
All right, well, guys, speaking of coming to a close, that's it for Miramar today. We'll be back with 2 more matches on Erangel in just a bit, as well as some breakdown from our analyst desk. But before we get that far, guys, you ask and PUBG listen. There's a new 8x8 map available to play on PUBG right now. That is Tego, so make sure you guys jump in the game after the ESL Masters tonight and check it out. But we'll be right back, guys. Don't go anywhere. We'll have some more PUBG here for you soon.
Joey, wake up. I want to play some PUBG, man. Joey, wake up, man.
Yeah, I'm
Play some
ready.
Games.
I'm ready to play some PUBG, man.
Welcome back to the ESL PUBG Masters Americas, where we are now officially halfway through the weekend of play. My name's Toffees. I'm joined by Hypoc and Godspeed, and we just watched a match that went the Young Kings' way. I'll be honest, up until this point, they had seemed a lot more like Edward II than Henry VIII, abdicating their chance to win, and I thought it might happen in that game, but they didn't. They came through, they got a massive kill count, and just like Henry VIII, Hypoc, maybe this is the beginning of the Reformation.
Yeah, fantastic Henry VIII references. I'm sorry, I completely dropped out of history, so I can't really follow you on that one. But if Henry VIII was on your PUBG broadcast, this bingo card, then I guess it's a success.
God, I hope it was. I really do. That said, though, it seemed like maybe a comeback. Like, that was a big game for them. They walked out of that with 14 kills, which for the Young Kings is a little bit shocking. We'll take a look back at their journey as they took the throne in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be completely honest while we kind of get through some of the kind of more slower starts to the game.
Formalities.
Really, formalities, really. The initial rotations, everyone coming out. I was actually worried a little bit about Young Kings and thought they had missed their opportunity. Puck, we had kind of talked about that, actually.
Yes, yeah, we had. There was an opportunity where I think 2 were knocked on. Each team, it was LATAM Veritas, so it actually meant that it was a 2v2v2, right?
Yeah, it was.
And there was definitely a window of opportunity where I think they could have taken much more comfortable control, I think is the way that I would word it, and whilst things still worked out, I gotta say we'll have a chance to take a look at it in a second, but it was really on the back of the individual utility usage of And1. That was the only thing really that kind of won them that end game. But the whole way through, I mean, watching here, we've seen how many scrappy kills there were in rotations. Started off with Sonics, as we saw. Dignitas, again, in a scenario where I don't want to say as if they were playing to survive, but maybe playing a little more reserved than what I would expect. And I mean, eventually it came down to obviously Sparking and Poonage being the last 2 up. But I don't know. I need to see something. Dignitas is rostered obviously since they've come together and Sparking's come across. I've been so excited to watch them.
Yeah,
and
agreed.
It's been very up and down.
Well, agreed. They've had some really insane moments, insane weeks, honestly, where they've just come out and fragged everyone. And then they've had these weeks where, to be honest, looking at their stats now, I mean, they've been knocked out of vehicles, I mean, the second most out of any other team, 12 times, right? And that goes to kind of in what we're talking about earlier as far as that send on the very first Miramar, where normally we'd see Dignitas probably take that push on foot, right? But they decided to do that. So Dig definitely been struggling. This is actually what we were talking about earlier, this last little clutch, I would say, by N1 FPS, going down to a 2v1 and able to get some really clean shots in with that barrel. And yeah, they were able to clutch it out on top of the fact that Young Kings did not get gifted that circle, really. I mean, they were fighting on the southwest edge for quite a while. So very well earned by those guys.
Very well earned, 14 kills, and that chicken dinner going to be a big move for them. Let's take a look at the match standings here. After that one, let's take a look also at the kill leaders from the game. And Hypoc, it's got to reflect. I think we're going to see a lot of them on here because they hustled, man.
Yeah, they did. And like I said, it was very back and forth in the mid game in terms of how many players fell in terms of rotations and these kind of scrappy, drawn-out fights. And actually, Attrition represented pretty well in the overall kills, at least. And it's rare that we've seen them really not achieve a decent placement overall and accrue so many kills along the way. Usually, when we're seeing them pick up kills, it's in kind of secure mode, right? In terms of holding down a position, making sure that nobody's able to advance on it. So a little, I don't want to say uncharacteristic, but a little different than maybe what we'd come to see last week at least. But it didn't amount to anything this time around, but maybe this could be the turning of the tides for them.
Overall standings up on the screen. Gas Can still in the pole position with 2 chicken dinners. They are not racking up crazy amounts of kills, but they're still ahead of more than half of the field in that context, but they're putting up the wins. Oath, however, Godspeed continues to be in the endgame mix. Again, we see them finish in 3rd place, 8 kills. This is like, I know they won last week, but this feels like a totally different team to me in a lot of ways.
And that's because they're playing way more solid, to be completely honest. This feels like a much more measured and controlled Oath. The fact that they're able to get this many kills means that they're able to kind of set up with their game plan and do what they want, which is getting a strong position in the circle and then basically turreting everyone from there. They've also just, I feel like, taken time with rotations a little more this week than they have at least last week. And because of that, they've been able to basically just kind of dominate these circles and make it to the end game with at least 3 to 4 members up, which is something that they were struggling to do before. So Oath, by all intents and purposes, have been playing very well this week. Very, very well. Much more consistent.
While we have it up, Hypoc, let's talk a little bit about Young Kings versus Veritas in that last match.
Yeah, and it's funny, actually, we're looking back through the stats, obviously, as that fight was kind of looking to break out. We've got the heads up here as both teams have struggled. I don't think that's really any secret when we look back at the previous results and whatnot. But coming into that, it was interesting to read. I think before that fight even happened, Veritas and Young Kings have killed each other 10 times, and overall, it was actually Young Kings that had come out on top 60% of the time. So just goes to show, the stats don't lie. The numbers are there.
It is, and I think the thing that I love is that the Young Kings haven't given up, Godspeed. There's something to be said for, like, they rode the struggle bus for a little while. They had a hard time, but they do keep putting in the fights. I mean, yesterday, after getting wiped, I think, was it Sharp that completely wiped their team?
Yeah, Sharp did.
It's tell me, you've been there. Does it take some gumption to pull yourself back up by the bootstraps in a game after game after game when things aren't going great for you?
It's incredibly frustrating, but at the same time, I mean, if you have to reset the mentality, because the reality is in PUBG, you're just going to have some bad games. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast, right? You're going to get some bad circles. You're going to potentially make a decision that was good in the previous circle that isn't great in the next one. And so you're going to have to make those hard decisions like, hey, do we have to crash this? Do we have to foot push this? Or oftentimes we've heard from a lot of the players or coaches where they're like, okay, well, the best decision in this game at this point is just salvage and just get some kills. So you're going to have those bad games. You just have to make sure that mentally you're prepared to have those and you're prepared to bounce back. Now, I think Young Kings is very valiant in the fact that they've been trying to bounce back, and sometimes we've seen those games from them, but sometimes we haven't. And ultimately, I think it's up to them to either make a major playstyle change after this event to see if that works, or continue to do what they're doing today. And if they can go into tomorrow, I think they'll be able to, at the very least, salvage this event for themselves.
Salvage it, maybe start sort of a new reign for them. We'll see. They got something to come away with. We'll see how it plays out. 2 teams I want to talk about because you guys kind of brought up consistency, Hypoc. Sonics and Oath. I mentioned Oath already. Here's an interesting. Sonics, I don't believe this weekend has finished. They had 1 game worse than 6th place. Pretty consistent. Oath only has 1 game where they weren't in the top 3. These 2 teams have been paragons of consistency and sort of getting to the late game. What are they doing that no one else seems to have their head around?
It's interesting. And again, if anybody didn't have the chance to go back and watch before he gets cut off, Kickstarter's interview yesterday, and he was talking about the real differences between the 2 weeks and how actually it came down to. I think we spoke to him halfway through last weekend, and it was kind of. It reeked of being in their own heads, right? Overthinking things, and actually at the end of that week, I think coming back after yesterday, he was just like, you know what? Looking back now, the way we felt about it is we just played bad, and like Godspeed has said, that's going to happen, right? There's going to be times where you can make all the right decisions, and there's another variable that you haven't accounted for. That it doesn't matter what you've done up until that point, you're still not going to win the game. It's just the nature of PUBG. One thing I will say is they're moving a lot more decisively. They're a lot quicker to react. They're not allowing these kind of lingering factors to become a problem when they do have to move. And that was one of the things Kickstarter was talking about, right? Is teams not moving when they were expecting them to do so. Now, actually, we're seeing them deal with that before it's even are they going to move, aren't they going to move? Oath are literally clearing their way into the end game.
Godspeed, how much of that decisiveness do you think comes from winning the first game? Like opening this thing with a chicken, does that open up decisive opportunities?
Yeah, I think that definitely helps. I mean, before you even finish asking your question, I think it absolutely helps. There's a lot of pressure that gets alleviated when you're the first team to win, right? Because then you can start to play a little more loose, and that I think has been a huge benefit to Oath just kind of getting this lead early. Now, granted, they did get, I think, the first win of last week, and then they definitely struggled. But generally, I think, yes, getting that first win, or at the very least topping off the leaderboards early is a big confidence booster moving forward.
And also, I think you brought up a great point, Hypoc, this idea of variables. Like, sometimes just bad luck happens.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, the variable is shaped like a grenade with the word TSM etched into it. But the reality is, like, they are avoiding those variables by making aggressive decisions. TSM is a team that often is the variable that hurts others, but they don't seem to be closing those gaps themselves. I don't get it, because TSM is such a smart team to me.
Yeah, I'm still kind of. Godspeed had made a comment last week about how it felt very disjointed watching some of TSM's games, where, characteristically, I mean, I compare them a lot to ENTS over in Europe, where they're always doing something as four, right? You can see the setup, you can see the structure of what they're trying to achieve. I haven't seen it. I really haven't.
Yeah.
I mean, even in the win, yes, they played very well in that game, but even just a snapshot image of that, we look at the other games, and I've not seen that same structure. I've not seen that same composure in terms of being in control of even those bad positions. We always talk about TSM finding a way out of bad spots.
Yeah.
They still don't look tested sometimes in those bad spots, and it's just been flaky for me. I'm hoping they can turn it around, because we've seen the kind of hot and cold, and usually TSM are able to drag themselves through it. So let's hold on for hope.
TSM and Sonics, two teams that are used to fighting themselves out of bad spots, but haven't quite been able to do so. But we've got more games. Is this the time? We're in a good spot, though, because we've got two amazing casters bringing you the call for game number 3. It is Cammy D and Clover.
Thank you so much, Poppy, Hypoc, and Godspeed. And I mean, Cameron, we've kind of had our own, I think, misgivings and maybe kind of opinions about what's been happening with TSM. As you heard them say, they've obviously gotten that chicken dinner, but things have felt very disjointed. And I would agree. I think that when we watch how they've kind of been problem solving, especially in the mid game, it's been something that they've been struggling with. But now that we're switching things off, we're changing gears, we're going from Miramar to Erangel. Do you think that this is a place for growth for a team like TSM? Do you think that they could maybe find a moment to shine here?
Yeah, I do think their playstyle leans a little more towards success on Erangel. I don't want to read too much into TSM not performing well. They had a really solid El Pozo game. It was just the previous game that they perhaps were rotating a little too late, weren't able to clear their areas with all of the other teams that have corralled over that Picado field position. But either way, going into Erangel, I do think this is should be a good game for them, because they don't feel off in the ways that TSM have historically felt off, whether it was last weekend, whether it was PCS 4. This does feel like the TSM that is really fully locked in. They were able to drop immediately on South Georgia Pole, but the circle, we've had
Not
worse.
a great one.
We've had worse. We've had a lot worse ones. But yeah, it might be a little bit of an adventure, shall we say, for a number of these teams to get to that eastern side, especially considering just how many teams dropped around Georgia Bowl. Not only have TSM and Troglodytas on the South and North George, respectively, you also have gas cans all the way up here in Zarki, not to mention Young Kings and Akreche, who landed around the area but are still trying to rotate their way down. So we could see some late rotations by a number of these teams that are just now arriving to their loot spot.
I mean, this flight path really cut off a lot of those southern drop spots. So some teams, like the gas cans, who typically like to land on a military island, choosing for their alt drop this time, the far north part of Zarki. And now, given this is a kind of a stalwart circle, Kameshki also into play, it's going to make things really interesting for those teams that have been opting to play to the north. I mean, No Chance, for the most part, has been staying on the northern edge. With them being in the circle in Yasnaya, I don't really see them moving anytime soon. So it kind of opens up things for 3-3 for gas cans, for Troglodytas. So we know that TSM likes to wrap north on circles like this as well. And so I could set them up for potential on some early fighting, But, you still got so many other teams out to the west and the mid part of this map that will probably try and place down center. And when you really look at the opportunities for them to go, maybe mansion a couple of those compounds out around near Lebovka.
Oh, okay, that's how. Okay. I thought that was part of the wall that, it just wasn't a crack all the way down to the ground. I was really confused for a second how RDS. It's fine. He's moving on out. He's breaking a couple of fences. showing.
Watching players drive just reminds me that if there's ever an event where someone's like, "Hey, I rented a car," I will just never allow any of y'all to drive me.
Don't do it. Yeah, just don't allow it, because we know that driving in PUBG is the exact same as driving. Like all these players, it is competitively mandated, professionally mandated that these players have racing sim setups for when they're in the vehicles. We have webcams watching to make sure that they're abiding by the rules. And so let's see how well Balkan can Formula 1 his way through this Fiumba area. I say area, it's only one member there of Fiumba. It's going to be DraftKings, and he's already in his vehicle trying to move out to join up with Emmy. I lied, he's not. He's sticking around. He was just adjusting where his vehicle was positioned here. But Fiumba are in a split. And you mentioned how we're going to be seeing teams maybe try and post up towards center. Maybe not all. If you're all the way on the west side, maybe not so much. But if you're in center of Erangel, there's no reason not to try and get a more central location of this circle. And so Fiumba being split up like this could be capitalized upon in the same way that we saw what happened to the Sonics just last game.
Yeah, I mean, you really run the risk when you run a split like that you're going to get crashed by a full 4-man. And I think Fiumba have decided to pull away from Lepavka. They've gotten all the loot that they really need. You can see Silzen and Shangxing actually pulling back to join Emmy and DraftKings in that central position. They've actually got a crate just to the north of them if they want to go for it. Good loot to start off with. But, I mean, you've got Oath now that can potentially backfill Lepavka, play on the edge, play the southern part of Milta, and TSM finally just about wrapping up their looting and, again, getting into zone. It's those teams that are coming from far away from the circle that I'm most concerned about early on.
So TSM looting up for a little bit, trying to gather all the resources, but Sonics also pushing on through. A touch late, perhaps, by their usual metrics. Left around 5 minutes, it seems. But they have a lot of open space in front of them, especially once they made their way through 22's area, that is being Razak. Veritas now rotating up through the area that Fiumba and No Chance have split for themselves. Big wide open field, but the distance hopefully is working out in their favor. Emmy only has a holographic for his SLR, so no long-range scopes for him at the moment. Hopefully the rest of his team can bring him one, as they have all left Sosnovka. Or, sorry, that's the island. Compound on the east side. The city on the east side.
Hey,
there it is. It can be. I completely brain farted. There are so many pseudo-Russian names on this map that sometimes you just go up on them every once in a while.
Did you know that Erangel is named after PlayerUnknown's daughter, Erin?
Yes.
True story. True story. For those of you following along at Twitch chat at home, I know we're really killing time, but we're killing time because right now these guys aren't killing each other. SSG is pushing off from Oath. They got a little bit too close, but made the smart decision not to engage, not waste their resources. Again, it's only phase 1, and we've seen some heartbreaking early deaths from a couple teams, including Oath. Already lost Kickstart early on wearing one of those Miramar matches. So for teams right now still kind of doing that split, you can see Oath actually did send Kickstart and Reload further north. Kind of a little bit concerned. I mean, Dignitas, they've got a split running right now as well.
Pretty wide split for Dig, but there's a lot of open area between those two positions that they should be able to defend themselves. Granted, whenever we're talking about splits defending each other, defending each polar half, that is going to be relying on landing your shots. So obviously, if you're not super comfortable with your team's mechanics, might want to just stay as for. But SSG now are going to be rotating through, shots coming in from Oath and Kickstart with a more forward position, trying to capitalize even further onto this, but SSG seem to be safe as of now, but I think they're driving in towards Dignitas' location, or at least, well, driving past, because Punij is here. Next turn on the shots.
And Dignitas, keeping that peacock going, and Sonic's doing a bit of the same right now, chasing out, hurting Veritas from this position, but coming down from the Stalber Mountains. We do know that Sonics like to have that high ground, and you see H1 actually is going to land a little bit of damage onto Veritas. Don't find the knock. Just kind of waiting for that second phase to pop. Again, the big thing, the big factor here that we're going to be seeing from a lot of teams is to set themselves up for an easy wrap rotation to the position that they want to take moving forward. So for those teams that haven't quite set up where they want to be. They haven't found the priority compounds. They're looking for the opportunity to either backfill a position or take a prime spot, depending on where the zone goes.
22, they're trying to manage their vehicles because TSM are now breathing down their necks directly. Surprised those tires are still available. I would have think that would have been capitalized by TSM's angle, but it seems that TSM don't want to overpeak onto this. They also don't want to put too many guns onto a single location because they're just trying to defend the entirety, or at least the east half, the entirety of the eastern half, shall we say, of that Yasnaya Lake.
I mean, Yasnaya was such a big factor in play already this weekend, so you can understand teams that might have the idea to hang in or around this. Already had one city finish today even, but again, as we wait for that circle to close, there's a lot of opportunities for where this could go. There's so much water into play, not only with the lake on the western side, but all the ocean along the coast there on the eastern side through Kamishki down to Lipovka. So Veritas having one of the more centralized positions when you factor in the unplayable lands. This could potentially go north via Stalwart Circle. This could go south via Yasnaya Circle. And that's kind of why you have these two sets of clustering right now. These are the teams that are trying to predict where this late game can go.
Only a few more moments before the circle closes. I have my eyes on Young Kings and Attrition there, coming in from the southwest. If the blue wasn't there, perhaps a fight could be breaking out. And with Rubino and LFP up front for Attrition, they could be trying to find a position right in the circle to set up and deal some damage and gatekeep. But with a shift like this, perhaps they're going to be thinking better of it. It is swinging all the way towards the north. It is going to be Stalber dead center. Troglodytes are trying to find their way up towards the top, but mostly backing away from the new sudden influx of vehicles all pushing in from the exact same angle, coming in from the south, all driving across Yasnaya Field, a little bit to the east as well, with the dignitas' position.
I mean, you've got Young Kings and Attrition that were looking to wrap on the western side to get into zone. Gas cans wasting absolutely no time to pull back to the north. Again, we've seen this team play the edge, keep their head down early until about phase 4 or 5, where they look to see it as center as possible. Fiumba runs into a little bit of trouble, though. Haston gets a knock onto Silzen during a drive-by. You can see actually he's going to get out of a car, tries to pick off a second one. Just can't quite connect that damage, but Raji helps him out here. Takes down DraftKings. Silzen confirmed, and 22 Esports pick up 2 kills now off Fiumba. Keep the pressure on them as Fiumba wastes no more time in this fight. They are getting out of this area and continuing on towards the center of zone.
They're trying. It's a really rough situation for Fiumba because this was basically their only option. You can't wrap out towards the east because that's going into the ocean. And unless you wanted to swing all the way around Yasnaya and even through that angle that we just previously saw Attrition and Young Kings enter in, they had to send it center like this. And I'm sure they knew the risks. And sometimes you got to do what you got to do. No other option there. Fortunately, they were able to come out with 2 still alive in a not so bad position, at least in terms of where the map is. But still, surviving S2, it's going to be a bit of a task for them if they want to make it towards the end game and have a chance to win this round.
Gas cans finding themselves a little bit surprised by some damage here from Attrition. Again, gas cans trying to keep their heads down on the edge of zone. Weren't quite expecting this, and not wasting any time with engagement, but we know how aggressive Attrition is. They love a good fight, even if it's early on. And they're not going to let off too lightly right now. As you see LFP pulling up to the ridgeline. See if he can snipe off a shot here on gas cans, but they pull back to those compounds. And I think Attrition at this point can't continue forward to the north. Now, obviously, right now, we can see this circle is fairly centered on Stalber, but if this takes a hard shift in any direction, it could be playing on just one side of the mountain. So no chance Troglodytes with the highest ground right now up there in the center. Everybody else kind of taking their bets on where they think that this could potentially play off of, because although the high ground's up there near the center, there's also a lot of open ground.
Veritas facing off against SSG. Both teams fairly healthy. Veritas in a little bit wide of a spread. If Danichi goes down, it could be a bit of a rough spot, but here comes Keenan trying to grenade that shack to make sure that it is cleared out. but no one is inside, and that second grenade should be enough information for him to know that the two members of Veritas here are all going to be playing behind the wall. The flash comes in, more flashes come through, and the rest of SSG, they're going to try and loop around onto this. How are Veritas going to readjust the other players? Do they have angles onto this fight? Can they support Danny and Lobes, or are these two players all on their own?
We saw Sharpshot take a Dacia and try to send it to another angle, but as the rest of Veritas closes in, might be able to help on support and keep the pressure onto Sharpshot. But right now, Keenan pushing into the compound, trying to see if he could spot an angle play from the bathroom, maybe potentially, but just can't get quite to the windows. And a Sharpshot actually was spotted out by JR. A drive-by there from Sybil to get the flush. And 2 members now fall. Danny G, Lobes as well. So that's 3 members. And JR takes a punishment shot there onto Civ. And Ethan actually falls now as well. So it's a big trade out from both of these teams.
Looked like a really solid send there by SSG, but perhaps a moment or two too late, as those other 2 members of Veritas have put themselves in solid positions to defend from this. Ethan's angle going to be the final nail in the coffin for SSG. Danny G has been finished off, but Lobes is able to be revived. And they're not too far from the circle. Let's look back over towards now the Sonics versus 22.
I see Tickleton with the high ground, trying to see what information he can call out to the rest of his teammates on members of 22. Mime, meanwhile, pulls back to the warehouse. Not sure if he needs some extra utility or just wanting to hold this position back out. But Sonics not really letting 22 climb beyond this current position they have. You can see Biggest Naga holding it down below the rock faces. Raji just on the other edge. Meanwhile, Dignitas heard the fighting here for Veritas and thought this might be a good time to capitalize on this. 303 not far behind them. Honey Badger trying to wrap around on Nangle. A similar play that we just saw a moment ago with Veritas onto SSG. Great shooting from Danny G and JR, but this time great shooting coming out from Sparking. Honey Badger, 2 members now of Veritas down, but they've got to wrap this up quickly. 303 is closing in fast.
Not just 303, we also see Versus there on the south. They could also send it up onto this position. It's all into Ethan here for Veritas. Try and stay alive. Try and survive through this, but I don't fancy his chances. And well, that has all been confirmed. Dignitas have taken control of this area, but where are they going to move to from now? It's not the circle, and they got to push through one team or another. Oath is here to give some support. 303 has to fall back because of that top-down angle. But that doesn't mean that Dignitas will not or could not become the same victims to Oath's high ground of presence.
The tires are starting to pop right now. 303 is beginning to lose vehicles. Pressure from both Dignitas and 303 is leaving them a little bit sandwiched. Iska and Stone Storm, the only 2 still standing, as Trisk falls to Oath here in the blue zone, closing ever so quickly as we start to see where this zone is going to go. Now, it has pulled away from the top of Stalber. Yasnaya is still into play, and Sonics have the centralized position, so depending on where this zone could go, tell us whether or not we've got a mountain or a city field finish. And it is going to go field wide and open. This is great for Dodge. You've got all of Yasnaya out to play. But right now, all the fighting that's been happening to the north and east has to wrap up for these teams. Are not in the zone just yet.
T-Plens throws a Molotov out, tries to deal some more damage to Dignitas, try and finish Sparking off. At the moment, there's still a possibility for a revive, but T-Plens is pushing out in the blue. He's trying to find a second angle onto this, trying to catch them off guard, but the UAZ is there. Will they be hearing the footsteps? It's not going to be the case. He finds another, who's going to try and secure those knocks.
I mean, that's 3 kills picked up right there for VS. Excuse me, 2, but immediately traded back out. Shinboy gets a knock and flush to punish VS, but Gropo, Artre, and the rest of the team have them pinned down behind a tree. There's nowhere left for Dignitas to go. This could be VS's favor. They've got 8 seconds till the zone moves. They need to work on this quickly. Thurable's going just a bit beyond where Shinboy was, and as the blue closing in, he's been spotted out, running in the open. It's gonna fall. Gropo getting that last headshot. VS annihilating Dignitas, now working their way back into zone. Meanwhile, Oath, watching that going on in the kill feed, setting up to potentially ambush VS on the edge of zone. You can actually see them start to wrap and cut them off their entry point for the zone.
Where are Oath going? There aren't a lot of playable areas after this shift. Even Sonic's now looking from the higher ground. They're going to have an open field in front of them to take some pot shots at. So anyone that's trying to move in towards the field itself, be it Versus, be it Oath, very, very limited options. TSM still with 4 up, 0 kills so far, but their eyes currently set on no chance, or at least Purdy does. Giving some information now, not going to enter the fight just yet. Going to let dignitas and not Kreche. God's in the kill feed. It's no chance. Who are they taking shots from? Taking shots from someone else. Perhaps Sonics, perhaps 22, or perhaps someone else from Yasnaya, but here Purdy is going to light the hammer. But he can't commit because gas cans are coming onto the rest of his team, and they know it. Alo up close and personal, trying to push up, but may have spotted that gas can's member, and is going to fall back. Doesn't want to overcommit. Finds Niku's. That's 1 down.
TSM had Kurt left behind for Anchor, and you can see him starting to join the rest of his team to lend a hand. As Alo goes down, the Blues closing in. There's not going to be a chance for revival right now. Luke 12 having to pull down the heal. His HP down to about 2 right now, but his gas cans continue to peek over the edge here. Finding themselves at a bit of risk for TSM now as Penta hanging back in the blue to try to deal with Greg Shot, but nades utility still out in full right now by gas cans to keep that pressure onto TSM. Luke 12 actually falls to zone. Didn't have enough time to continue recovering heal, but Hikerman is going to steal the kill. Picks that one up for the gas cans. The Kurt is going to get a flush, but immediately traded out. It's down to just Penta, and there's nothing left for him to do but focus on getting into the zone.
Trades back and forth for TSM and gas cans, but it's all happening in the blue. So it's not a good fight for either team, and whoever survives, you can see on the map, it's going to be no chance there. Lying in wait, ready with open waiting arms. But now back here towards the circle, it is continuing to shift down towards the city, or at least what remains, and towards the field where Fiumba, Emmy, and Shanjing are still alive, still in this. And here is the fight between Oath and Versus. Reload has been lost in the meantime, but Snakers with a nice angle can't get a lot out of it.
I think Oath making the smart play here, and that's just pulling back and starting to focus on their entry into the zone while still keeping an eye on VS. So right now, Troglodytes, who have been fighting with the Kreche for the last few minutes, try to deal with the last member, Kush, driving into the blue, but taking a lot of fire from Kill Demo, and the rest of Troglodytes, as he tries to get into the zone, has been knocked out of the car and is going to be eliminated. So Rusty Zera helping aid in that last and final kill. Troglodytes can now focus on getting into the zone. Penta, surprisingly, still alive, down to 9 HP, getting just barely into the zone, but spotted out by Rizola. That is it for TSM as they fall out here as well. And you can just see all the rest of these solos starting to drop like flies, and still plenty of teams not yet in the zone. Greg Shot need to get in, and it looks like Oath found themselves a good position, starting to clear up here on the east once again.
Trey taking a lot of damage, and there's nowhere for him to run to. So we got Oath looking at him, potentially 22, and Troglodytes also looking at his corner, looking at his angle. But Oath, as you mentioned, still focusing on getting to the zone. They are not sticking around too long. Instead, it's just going to be the blue that removes what remains of Versus. And now Oath, how are they going to find a stable place to hold on to? We could easily be seeing them crash towards Fiumba. That is a very, very fortifiable dip, and they have the guns out. They see the smokes. They know that there is a team here.
I mean, we saw a similar play to this last week, and this is a very exact dip right now. Fiumba and Oath trade back and forth. Those Fiumba is eliminated. They are going to lose Relo here for Oath, but Snakers, Balefrost trying to stay alive, and oh, no chance from afar. Just completely destroy Oath. They're gone in a blink of an eye.
Blink of an eye. It was a really good take at the start. They were so close to surviving with all 3 remaining members. But unfortunately, the high ground, even though it's not going to be too powerful too long, I don't imagine, takes them out of contention. Now, how is Greg Shot? One of the last 3 remaining solos, the last remaining solo. How is he going to try and get his way into this area? Sonics versus 22. Can try and capitalize and at least pick up a couple of kills before he goes down.
Good shooting out right now. Tiggleton getting that knock onto Vinny gives Shrimsy just a little bit of time to top off this health. Biznaga down, and that might be Raji's potential for a res. He doesn't quite have the angle of safety, though. As you can see, Troglodytes eyes on this fight as well. And the circle did shift out to the south, so all the teams up to the north do need to work their way down eventually, but Sonics can't do that until the 22 has been dealt with. Greg Shot still to the north, though. You can see the picture-in-picture healing just on the edge of zone. He's got this buggy that he can potentially use, and it looks like he's just going to go for it. Full send into zone. Gas Cans right now on 4 kills, but back at hand on the Sonics. As Troglodytes are eliminated, they're able to turn their attention back to 22 fully and might be getting a little bit of help from No Chance, who's starting to push up on the western side of this rock face.
Good angle by Mime. Doesn't deal too much damage, but it still keeps 22 from being able to peek freely open. But he is also still worried about Greg Shot. They know that Gas Cans have a member left into this. So he's going to be backing away while Shrimpsy does the full physical wraparound. He wants to finish this, and that's going to be 22 taken out of consideration for the round. And now Sonics can finally perhaps focus on getting into the circle, especially now that Greg Shot has been discovered, trying to scale down the side of the cliff. He's going to be taken out. Top 4, Sonics inside, but how much surviving can they do from now? They still need to get into the circle, and it is a wide open. It's not exactly a field, there's some elevation involved, but it might as well be.
I mean, Sonics was still 3 up. This was one of those games that we talked about Shrimsy with the 4v1 at that shack right outside of Yasnaya. This is the potential for a repeat for Sonics. Can they find that first chicken dinner as they play the edge of zone? They still need to worry about No Chance up to their north, or they can really turn their attention back down to the city. With Dodge, though, fully anchored in, and Young Kings completely anchored into a shack as well. It's going to make a push from the north down into the town a little bit difficult. So I'm curious to see how Sonics play this one out, though. But sitting on 10 kills, not a bad start right now. You can see, though, Cable did get an opening knock onto Mime, and No Chance knows exactly who is beside them now.
Really good shots. Taking Mime out is huge. They tried to cross over, and now that he is not available to give covering fire, the rest of Sonics, Shrimsy, and Tiggleton are as vulnerable. I think Tiggleton is making the send. Shrimsy's trying to give some covering fire of his own, and Tiggleton has made his way towards Mime. He's going to start the revive and has not been caught out while doing so. Blue also upsets No Chance's own position, and Hala Senpai takes Rizola down. So both these teams, No Chance and Sonics, shooting at each other while also moving into the circle in tandem, while Dodge and Young Kings, what remains of them, are just lying in wait.
But it looks like Sonics aren't waiting at all as they just go to straight crash back down towards the zone. They've got the power pillar here, and it looks like this is going to be where they've chosen to put down Mime. It's there successfully. In fact, all members of Sonics just about found that safety right now, and the circle is going to shift in their favor. They found a good centralized position, and that's going to pressure Dodge into just one of these buildings, and also put them now into throwables range of Young Kings.
It's now on No Chance. What are they going to do? Are they going to try and send it on to Sonics? Are they going to try to send it on to Young Kings? I think the latter is more likely. But it doesn't matter what they do as long as they make a decision. The play zone is closing in 30 seconds, and they can't stay here. They can't just run down on feet. They have to take vehicles. I don't know if there are enough smokes that spawn on the map in order for them to make a safe wall, but the shots are already coming on through, waiting too long to make a decision, and Hala Senpai and Vegas are picking up the points, picking up the kills.
Just one member of No Chance still standing, and he doesn't really have any opportunities to get into the zone safely, as we've seen the pressure from all 3 of the remaining teams inside the circle, shooting at anything that they can spot. 2 knocks out for No Chance, but with the zone just barely moving, there's not really any time for those reses, and they're just going to have to focus on getting into the zone. But I think they might be trying to pick up that remaining member, keep it 2 up for No Chance. But again, Blue is creeping in, and you can see Lampalot, Dodge, Young Kings all have line of sight on this tree.
That's it for No Chance.
Oh.
Listen, when you name yourself certain things, sometimes you are just testing the universe to bring it to reality, and them waiting there too long, there was nothing that they could have done. They had to do what the Sonics did, which is get into vehicles and just send it down to a position. But I don't know if there was one that they could have taken for free. Now we're looking at the top 3 teams remaining in Young Kings. Shockingly, I didn't notice this. I thought they were very wounded. They still have 4 members up, playing around that long building, and then Dodge, of course, also have 4 up. They've been in Yasnaya for essentially this entire game. But Sonics, with 3 members, but they have the spread, and they have really solid crossfire position on where Young Kings and Dodge are going to have to rotate it, push through if they want to get to the center. It all depends on where Phase 8 swings.
I mean, we talked about momentum going into this match. Young Kings coming off a win on Miramar, carrying that forward with right now 0 kills, but still 4 up strong. And that doesn't mean 0 damage. They've actually been getting into some decent fights through this game. But I mean, whatever gets you in that situation is the one that works. Now you can see the circle completely centered up on Sonics. This is their spot to play. And Dodge and Young Kings could potentially set up for mutual destruction as they work to the zone. And if Sonics can really sit back and let these two teams tear apart their numbers, the sudden 3-man versus 4v4 could start to swing back in their favor. And as we've seen what one member of Sonics can do in a 1v4 situation, imagine what 3 can do.
Raiha's already been taken out. But Mime is now also looking towards Dodge's position. The utility is coming out from the orange squad there on the south because they got to make their way in. This could be a little bit of choice paralysis here for Sonics. Do they focus on Dodge? Do they focus on Young Kings? Both are quite vulnerable, but I like this rotate now from Shrimzy. Just gonna have the lineup, making sure that that smoke wall does not protect them. He gets one, but taken very, very low before he can get any more than that. So he's gonna toss a frag grenade before he backs off.
Oh,
he
that's
knows
good.
utility is coming right back on top of him. He still gets taken out by a grenade by Lamp. But his post-mortem grenade is still there. He's got more already coming from the grenade.
Oh, Hella Senpai. Hella Senpai wastes no time, just charges straight into Sonics, trying to work on the denial right now. As you saw, Finna was flushed out, Vegas knocked, but still managing to keep 2 up as Waiku's actually is going to get the flush onto Vegas. So Young Kings have managed to push into some safety in the circle. They found themselves a power pillar and a couple of hay bales, but Tiggleton had to pull back towards H-Win, kind of leave Shrimzy to bleed out. Unfortunately, it's just not a safe res spot until they can deal with Dodge. And you can see as well, Young Kings actually kind of going a 2-2 split. Poblex and Waiku's watching what's happening to the south, while And1 FPS and Flux have the north.
Mime dropped a smoke down just in time for them to have the spacing necessary to get the revive. So they do still have 3 members up. But the forces of Young King and Dodge have closed in onto them. It's just Dodge, though, that are in a really, really rough position. Whether or not they know that Poblex is right behind them, they still need to push in towards the Sonic spot, and the grenade comes out. Alisaber with the high ground angle can't get any more off of that. It's just Mime that's been knocked. But the Molotov comes out. Can Lamp find more? He's pulling out the mini. Maybe spots the foot, spots the head, waiting for Tiggleton to peek out.
You can see Young Kings choosing this as an opportunity to tear into Sonics as well. They still have 4 up, and they've got a good angle. Great damage there onto members of the Sonics, but Flux being very careful, pulling back to the US, using it as hard cover as Sonic still locked in and focused onto Dodge. Now, the center of the zone is just to the west of Shrimzy's position, but as players continue to get within throwable range, you can start to see, actually, most players have used up what left throwables they have. Dodge has nothing left. Sonics, I believe, have used everything except for a handful of smokes. It's just up to Young Kings at this point. And again, Poblex actually has managed to snake himself behind Lampalot and Halo Senpai.
Sonic's inability to take care of Dodge when Shrimzy had that initial angle means that they are in a rough spot right now. If Poblex goes big onto Dodge, then I think Sonics would have a really big chance. But at the moment, they could just be the wrong end of a sandwich between 2 separate teams. Lamp, you're in the blue. Lamp still takes a lot of damage. Still is going to have to take time to heal on up, hiding in the smoke. So Dodge aren't very comfortable either, which you can't really blame them. They still have the blue pushing on them. They don't have a lot of information. I don't even think either of these teams know where Young King are all set up on. They're just waiting for the blue to force them to fight, hoping that they can spot someone out first.
And you can hear all the flashbangs coming out from multiple teams. Dodge right now just a stone's throw away from Sonic. So Hella Senpai the first to stand, knocked down by Tiggleton. And Tiggleton spots out Young Kings, but it is traded. Only 1 member still standing of Sonics, but Young Kings managed to pull a back-to-back. They get another chicken dinner, this time on Air and Go.
This time, only 2 kills. It's the flip side of the coin of their massive double-digit kill victory the previous game. This time around, I'm not going to say they didn't have to do much, because they were still in a very, very rough spot, especially once they had to leave and go out in the field. But with great positioning across the board, and especially Poblex's almost anchor or at least safety scouting. He gave a lot of information. It was a lot of good things coming out of his spot to allow the rest of the team to be comfortable and coordinated as they pushed out in that field. But ultimately, it was because Dodge versus Sonics, Young Kings didn't have to do a lot but wait for that fight to break out and just pick up whatever remained.
Well, as you said, I mean, that repositioning that Publix had was absolute key point there. I mean, Young Kings used their numbers to kind of split their attention, half on Dodge, half on Sonics, and hurt them almost into each other, not only resulting in some of that mutual destruction, but making it really easy for them to clean up there at the very end. And so although they took that win with only 2 kills, a win is a win nonetheless. And as you say, I mean, we know that they've got that fragging capability, that fragging ability from what we saw on the Miramar match previously. And I think the teams that are really taking this one slow, patient, and methodically and not overextending too much is where we're starting to see some of these victories come from.
Yeah, we now have 2 teams with 2 wins so far. It's going to be Gas Cans and Young Kings holding down the top spots. It's all going to be on kills for the tiebreakers. I think it's still Gas Cans on top, but what just a meteoric rise it seems by Young Kings, a team that we really didn't talk about much at all last week, yesterday, really coming in hot today. I don't know if we're going to see a triple crown, a 3-piece from them today. I think that might be a little too much to ask, but honestly, if they already got 2 in a row, so what's one more?
You know, I'm feeling the Sonics. I feel like it comes down to these small, minor mistakes that are happening at the end of the game. They're running out of utility. They're running low on resources. And when it comes down to it, they really have their attention split as well. And as we heard the desk say, they've really managed to make it into the late game time after time after time again. Inevitably, a win is going to have to come sooner or later. And I truly feel that going into this final match for Erangel, that this could be that chicken dinner we finally see from the Sonics.
Yeah, they're looking a lot better. I said that I wasn't super confident in their play coming into this day, but they're looking a lot solid. It is, as you said, just like the ability, the need to get over that last hurdle, get over the line in order to get those wins. And I said it before, I'm saying it again, we're running out of time.
All right, well, as you heard, we're running out of time because we've got one more match coming up for the evening. But before we go to break, guys, you saw all the Alienware we gave out to the pro players during PCS4. Now we're giving some of the gear to you. Check out ESL PUBG Masters Alienware giveaway. Details, including the terms and conditions, on our PUBG Esports Twitter account at PUBG Esports. Make sure you guys check that out. Enter to win some really cool Alienware gear. We'll be right back with some more PUBG.
Welcome back to ESL PUBG Masters Americas. Game 3 has just finished, and the Young Kings continue their reign of terror as Sonics got close, but were ultimately forced to their knees before the thrones of the Kings. Let's talk about that match. Let's go back and let's not talk about it. Let's look at it. It's highlight time. Hype Hawk?
Yeah, it's again a very interesting mid game. I think was. Is there a highlight? Go yeah, there we go. So, yeah, it's another interesting mid game. It's the second time we've actually had what we're talking about is a 20 to 30 meter variance in the actual ending location. Now I know we were talking about this constantly back and forth, and actually Sonic's making it through, but the chaos that ensued up until that point. I mean. A few teams coming in. Optic, you can see here on the minimap, phase 3 closing in. Loads of teams kind of getting stuck is the way I'd put it. And kind of playing into what we've already talked about is teams' tendency to want to hang on to the edge for as long as possible.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of saw Sonics even do that here a little bit on the north side, but that's after they basically cleared everyone out, right? And we saw this mad dash. This position has obviously been quite popular. Even last week, we saw Troglodytas come here and find some success as Oath as well as Fiumba tried to crash that position. The north side was really where the fight was for me, though. Obviously, Sonics were there, and they pretty much cleaned up everyone on this side. And they held this position for as long as possible, kind of going back to your point, until they had to move up. And to be honest, Spock, the position they moved up to as well was really good.
It was. I mean, up until very late on, very late on, I was thinking, this is the one. This has got to be it. And then Dodge just
decided no.
Snatching it away at the very last hurdle. And how many times have we talked about Sonics and the last hurdle, getting over the last hurdle? And again, Steve, you actually made a really, really interesting point as well. I'll bring you in here because we're talking about in the previous game criticizing Young Kings for playing it very slowly as a duo, but actually in that scenario there, you got 4 up. Like, you know that goes your way. The fact that Dodge do damage to Sonics and ultimately Dodge lose people in that cross into the field. There is no motivation to move. You wait until you absolutely know that victory is yours.
And to be honest, like, Young Kings, despite the fact that they only got 2 kills there, you're not going to see them on the kill leaders or the damage leaders. But the reality is, when Dodge slid towards Sonics, they backfilled them. They sent 2 Kings down there who laid in bushes, made sure that they just worked that blue edge and made that play. So I can't fault them for a 2-kill win because strategically they made their plays, right? I mean, Godspeed.
I mean, they got the dinner, right? That's in this case is all that matters for them, simply because of the fact they already had one dinner before. And so the other thing that I'd like to point out as well is I almost feel like Dodge potentially was hoping Young Kings or whatever team was to the north of them would third party and help them with Sonics, but that was not the case at all. And that's the biggest thing in PUBG is I feel like, and I'll be honest, I remember even doing this in my competitive career. You count on teams to do things that you think they should do, but they end up not doing those things so many more times often than not. So I feel like Dodge was waiting for that and it never came.
I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's a life lesson. You can't count on other people to do what you want them to. You got to sort of make it happen yourself. The Sonics, I think we've learned a lot of that lately. The Sonics, they did what they had to. They were locked up between 2 teams. It is what it is. And again, like, as a fat guy, I'll tell you, I don't care how the chicken is cooked. All I care about is it's delivered. And so Young Kings delivers 2 games in a row. They get themselves the chicken dinner.
Wait.
As a former fat guy.
Wait, there's a phrase in here that I know I hate bringing. Steve, you love it, but you got to win the games you're supposed to win. Young Kings were supposed to win that game, right? They didn't get overzealous. They didn't overstep the mark, and like you said, we can't sit here and criticize that at all. Again, the 2 kills, the most impactful in the game in my eyes. Everything else is white noise.
Yeah, and Godspeed, let's talk about the Sonics for a second. They got 12 kills in that game.
They did.
Another second place. I mean, these guys are very close to always the groomsman, never the groom at this point. Because our second place in the 6 games or 7 games we've played. And that rotation that they had to make that they survived was very similar to that game we had on Miramar yesterday, where they had to transition from the north through a really tough open area and lock up a very small safe zone. And it's just not optimal, but what other option do you have?
I mean, I honestly felt like the way, even Pox said it, the way they played that game up to that point was great. The fact that they even got that position to hold out in the last three, as one of the last three teams, I should say, was impressive. They completely cleared out the North. It's just Dodge decided that was the team they were going to push, as they were in technically the best position, and Young Kings passively made the best calls. You know, they decided to just play behind Dodge and let those two teams kind of, you know, hang themselves, and because of that, they were able to get the win. I mean, like you said, you can't really hate. I mean, that was a smart decision.
There's a cerebral part of the third party, right? This idea that, you know, if you fight first, the third party is going to come on in from the other side.
Sure.
And if there's a team that I want to try to split in half to fight in two directions, it's the Sonics.
It's not Young Kings right now, for sure.
Right. So, but that's what I'm saying is they forced the Sonics. They're trying to get a split, hoping the Kings would help. It didn't work out. Here's my question. I'll ask this, Hypoc, because I'm sure chat's thinking about it. Did Young Kings win that game themselves, or did Dodge win that game for the Young Kings with the choices they made?
I'm always of the latter. Dodge kind of set them up for success there with making that decision, and again, you could argue it was either way they come out of the apartments there, it's difficult, right? There's no right answer there, and it comes back to what we were talking about earlier, right? There's always going to be a variable you can account for, but it may not always go your way. You can make all the right decisions, and something else happens, and that's why you don't win the game. And I think that previous game is actually a perfect example of that.
Yeah,
you know,
agreed.
Ironically, variable is often a grenade-shaped variable tagged with TSM. Instead, it was
DGE this time.
Yeah, well, this time it was their drop spot, right? And that said, though, it's tough. You've been there. Just tell me in a short sentence, Godspeed, how hard is it to play out of that city and try to make it work when the circle leaves?
If you're in Dodge's position, the way they had to come out of that apartment, it's incredibly difficult. I mean, there's nothing I need to break down for you. It's two teams watching one team leave apartments, so it's tough. It's really hard.
Two teams watch one. Everyone hopes for the best, and a winner comes out. But we've got two winners for you guys in our final match of the day, starting right now with Cammy D and Clover.
Thank you so much, Toffees, Hypoc, and Godspeed. And all right, we're going into the final match, Cammy. You heard them talk a bit about that Young Kings win. We just witnessed the second one, though, potentially at the cost of Dodge. But, I mean, Sonics, 7 games now, 6 top 6 finishes, 3 top 2 finishes. It's got to happen, right? I mean, we've got to see it. We didn't see a win last week. The potential's got to be there, right?
The potential is always there. I think Young Kings coming out and getting 2 in a row shows that for every team, the potential is there. Attrition was a team that looked like a completely different team at PCS4, and they came out and had a great week last week and are still putting up some good games this time around. So for these teams that are the best 8 teams from each sub-region that we're looking at in the Americas, the potential is always going to be there. It's just about having the ability to get it done. And sometimes it's just not your week. That's something about competition that frankly doesn't get discussed about a lot. You can be the best team in the world, like I think Sonics still are, and you just happen to peak at the wrong time, or the inverse of peak. Either way, like sometimes it's just not your week. But how they played the previous game, how they've been playing today at the very least, you still cannot count them out by any means.
Oh, and as you can see, it looks like the plane was pretty vertical and potential for a military circle, as 4 teams have landed on the military spot. So you've got Attrition and TSM taking alt drops on the south and north sides of the island. Fiumba taking their Nova alt drop, and Gas Cans their normal, comfortable spot of Sosnovka on the C block and the rest of the military structure. But Trogloditas, 303 still sitting at north, and as that circle's going to pop, this is the potential for a Milta Peninsula O circle, or even a good spot for Dignitas to play out of.
It is. There's a little bit of water in the circle, of course, that should be noted, similar to the previous game. The bigger problem that I see is, I'm about to say 5. It's just a single member of Versus there randomly, I think. Jube, something happened with his connection, unfortunately. He's actually still falling.
Oh, he's got an M4.
T-Plants. Oh, yeah, no, T-Plants. This is a totally different situation. Versus, what is happening? That's a totally different engagement in the kill feed. So this is what these super tight vertical plane paths get you, is everyone's landing on top of each other. You get a lot of fighting here in the very beginning. And this is even before my point of those teams all having to get off Sosnovka Island.
And I think one member of Versus joined a little bit late and got picked off there from a crash day, so that's what we saw in the field. But the rest of Versus, T-Plints did manage to get an M4 and was chasing for a kill. There's something opening onto, I believe that was Young Kings to start. And so, I mean, again, the early aggression that we've been seeing from LATAM this event has kept things so interesting, so exciting. And one of the reasons that I think we've seen a lot of LATAMs kind of grow in terms of the kills. But I mean, Fiumba had a little bit of a lackluster week thus far in terms of kill counts. They're only on 14. And so a circle like this, Fiumba, the potential to maybe even bridge camp TSM, gas cans, Attrition, could be a good early scoring opportunity for them. But Oath, we've seen them do really well on these Milta Power circles.
If it stays on Milta Power, if it stays on Milta Peninsula, that is definitely where they have earned the most of their money, at least throughout 2020. I think the statistics have changed a little bit in 2021, but either way, they're definitely going to be one of the apex predators here, at least if it stays in that area. I can't tear my eyes away from Sosnovka Island. Are we going to see multiple teams all try and cross the bridge to Milta? Or are we going to see multiple teams all try and take boats to Milta Power? Not to mention all the teams that are... I don't think anyone's trying to go more west than they are now.
I agree. I mean,
at least
maybe a ferry, right? A Attrition has the opportunity to play the ferry if they want to rotate back around to the west. But, I mean, as you say, Fiumba does have the potential to get in some boats for Nova. That's an easy rotation out towards where Oath is playing. But we've seen Fiumba kind of do the bridge camp thing before. They really like to hold on to the crossroads when they think it's going to be a melee circle. And you can see with MA still in this area, they might not necessarily take that Nova wrap around and just opt for the bridge. So if Fiumba don't waste any time on this, though, it should be an easy wrap for the rest of the teams out of the zone. I fully expect gas cans to take one of the slower wraps off this island so that they can try to avoid early engagement. No doubt that they saw not only how full the plane was at the end, but some of the parachutes nearby.
Both right now. They actually already sent Relo up towards Lumber to catch SSG out, but he's already taken a little bit of damage. Down to 70, forced to fall off the roof. And with no backup in immediate territory, the decision might be made for him to back away, but it doesn't seem like SSG want to push this positionally at least too much. They're going to be, of course, keeping an eye in his direction if they want to play cresting over that ridge. But for Oath, especially now that it seems to be Snakers is grouping up, they're taking a wide position, well aware that the circle is not yet committed towards their drop spot. It is not yet committed towards Milta Power. And they want to be in a position to capitalize on the circle, whichever way it shifts.
Let's take a quick overhead view again. You can see Dignitas did actually pull back towards prison. They had a really wide sprint to start, and that's allowing No Chance, a couple other teams, the opportunity to fill in these positions. Veritas kind of going a little bit wide around No Chance positioning here at the Alamo. You see a little bit of drive-by shooting, but not really looking for that full committed engagement just yet. But the rest of No Chance out to the north of this, up on Heaven, could potentially continue on, pushing, I think, Veritas into that mansion area. There's, I mean, when we get zones like this, we have the potential we talked about being a Milta Peninsula circle. It could go prison, or it could kind of hold to the western side, go shelter. And so right now, teams just kind of looking for that safety spot to put down that gives them that ability to wrap around. But we talk about safety, TSM and gas cans both opting for that wide rotation, trying to be safe, but actually getting caught off guard as Adam getting the flush onto Kurt. Now keeping a watchful eye on Alo. The rest of TSM pull back away. So they've managed to break 2 off of 1. So it looks like they've kind of torn TSM apart here.
Yeah. Alo and Penta are not going to keep going down that path. This looked to be a very specific trap that gas cans have set up. Only losing Purdy is, I think, honestly, could have been a lot worse. But over here, also have Dodge losing a member and Lamp a lot. SSG's setup that we saw them establish not too long ago has been finding a couple of killing opportunities for themselves. Dodge are going to continue to be pushed down into that building that they have. And now here comes gas cans. They dealt some damage to TSM, but they're not going to overstay their welcome because they still need to get into the circle. They're not going to hang out in the blue. They've done that against TSM once already, and it didn't work great for either team.
I mean, gas cans, you know, sitting on 2 chicken dinners, 32 kills. They're 10 kills ahead of Young Kings, who've had a pretty modest day to start. And so if you're gas cans kind of going into today, your thoughts either on getting a 3rd chicken dinner or just upping the kill count to have that advantage going into the final day tomorrow, and the potential of really coming out on top this weekend. So for me, to see them in this final match not waste any time in that engagement, get what you can, pull away, and count your blessings, set up for that next fight, it's really showing that gas cans focus on the rest of the end game. Now, Sonics, again, we talked so many times about those heartbreaking close finishes that they have had. And so I'm not quite sure how they're going to keep playing this one out right now. High ground on the edge, try to get that information. But typically we do like to see Sonics go for that central position. So I think with that phase 2 pop, that might be when we see Sonics fight for or engage to try and get as center as possible.
Dignitas now rotating in. They looted Severny, dropping just north of Stalber as, like DSM, their Georgia Bowl drop was not very favored by this round's plane path. And fortunately for them, timing looks good. No one immediately in front of them. And they're getting into a not too off of center spot. Obviously, it's still closer towards the edge than it is to the dead center, at least where they are right now, if you don't want to continue pushing forward. But at least they're not coming in just on the edge already in phase 1. Attrition, similar situation for them. Young Kings all the way in front. But actually, looking back to Dignitas, they seem to be really wanting to push their luck here, driving ever closer towards the edge, swinging towards the east side, getting there towards the Povka. 303 are going to be making sure to push them that way. Can't deal too much damage from these long-range rifles, but it at least forces Dignitas to make a decision.
Okay. There you go.
They want this. All 4 of them are swinging in towards this hill.
Oh, he's in a good position for a drive-by as well. Does connect some of the damage. Finds the not kill demo actually helping out there. Faishka just immediately lasered into, and you can see the Troglodytas pull back around to try a second time, but pressure coming in from Dignitas as well as 303. Is going to pull this play back just a little bit. You can see, though, the 303 members in that compound should have some safety. But H11 Jr., he's got a nade out. He wants to retaliate for this, and that might actually land really close to kill Damo. Gets him low, but doesn't knock him.
They didn't know H11 was here. Deals heavy damage, gets a knock on to kill Demo. Some trade of damage back down to 37. And, of course, we can also see Dignitas here, smelling the blood in the water. Wait to see if they also can't have an opportunity. While that happens, phase 2 hard shifts down towards the south. So this fight is not even valuable for positioning. Dignitas, they might be leaving. I think 303 are trying to get out of this as well, which is going to give Troglodytas the opportunity to get a revive onto kill Demo. But they're going to be losing momentum, losing tempo of their own rotation to get into phase 2.
I mean, this feels night and day different from that last game we had on Erangel yesterday, where we had crash after crash after crash into the same compound. This time, teams are being a little more slow and methodical, or finding the scoring chances when they have it, but when things turn back against them, they break away, they pause, they take a breather, and they look to see what's ahead of them for next. Now is the circle, though. As you saw, did shift out to the south, no chance, wrapping around the western edge, taking some fire from Sonics. Damage is going to connect, but no knocks out of the vehicles just yet. Sonics playing the edge right now. Now, with this circle, this could stay Milta. This could go Milta Peninsula, Milta Power, even up on the lumber yard. And so I think some of the teams right now aren't quite certain how they want to play this one out, seeing where the zone is going to take this one as we get closer and closer to the mid game. But Oath, meanwhile, you know they've got to be smiling very pretty with this circle.
They're able to fall back and reclaim control of small power. Sharp shot, same cannot be said of him, as his send down to join up with Keenan gets capitalized on by Veritas, who were already there with the appropriate angles. Or rather, no, all of them were driving by. I thought they at least had one person down, but no, that was a drive-by kill and a sharp shot. So definitely not one that they are particularly happy about, SSG. And Veritas able to find a position, but how safe is it? It does have a hard cover. They were able to find a building left over from, well, one of those buildings in between Power and Milta itself. And now that they've all been taken over, any of the teams coming in from the north that have yet to find a position south of Lumber, they're going to have a hard time making their way in if it does continue to swing down this direction.
I mean, as you say, right, the teams that are going to come in a little bit late, this is such a prime spot to be from. and there's not really any way to come in at this safely. Even if you try to come in from the forest, there's a lot of open area, open for snipers, DMRs, and what have you. Now, the teams that are holding on to the north, 22 and 303, had a similar idea to play the edge of prison. 22 Esports just to the west of this position from 303. We're waiting to see if anybody else comes in late from the north. And something that's been really interesting to me is just the thought process that so many LATAM teams have had in this lobby. They've taken a lot of entry points in the same positions, kind of even rotations around the same spots.
They do seem to be, yeah, our regions, sub-regions do seem to fight each other a lot. More often than you think. Maybe that could just be a confirmation bias. Who really knows? But dignitas, what they know is gas cans are in that compound. A little bit of a moat compound, at least the way that I think of it. There's a lot of open space around it, which can be a benefit if it stays in the circle, but also a detriment if gas cans do have to rotate away from that. Just a few moments left. I can feel the anticipation in the air all the way here in my remote broadcasting setup about where this next circle is going to go.
Oh, all right. Actually pulling away from power, going to Milta. The Southern Peninsula is still well into play. I've actually seen gas cans play that position south of Dodge before, but Dignitas might be in the position to rotate there first. But meanwhile, this fight that's been going on between 22 and 303 slowly but surely not yet coming to an end, as 303 first to crash into Lumberyard, and 22 just going to push off barely to the west of that positioning. So the high ground not given up yet from either of these two teams. However, once again, seeing a big urban presence in the mid game.
Sonic's trying to capitalize on a rotating 22. A little bit of damage, nothing that's going to stick too much. I may have spoken too soon. Hazelton drops down below half HP, but they seem to all have found their way into the Milta field. And now Sonic's attention turned back towards No Chance. Still getting some headshots, no knock, but it's the damage that lasts. Damage to the helmets, damage to the armors, and damage to the meds. That's the important factor here.
You can see just how clustered it is right now from all the teams that are trying to inch in closer and closer to the center. Trogloditas set up here into Wizard Tower, taking on fire from both Oath and Space Station Gaming, as well as, I think, potentially even Veritas. And again, I mean, it just kind of talks about these positionings. Once you get into a spot, it's great until you're no longer in the zone, and then you've got all eyes on you with this open terrain to play from. Those trees, those dips aren't going to be enough fully to walk out of that position. So that's why teams are trying to hold on to cars, trying to hold on to as much utility as they can for that transition in the late game. But Sonics, with that high ground spot, did get an opening knock onto Attrition, but it's at range, so it's going to be an easy res, but still damage nonetheless for Sonics to do onto another team. Tear into that armor, take away those meds and that utility that they've got.
Yeah, there's really no reason for Sonics to try and move from that compound, especially with there are a lot of options left. With that Milta field dead center, you don't want to have to commit to anything. If you're a team and you're in a position and you're safe, don't overthink it. Don't overstep it. It's this next shift that is going to, I think, really focus in on where the end game is going to be. There's going to be a little bit of water that the circle shifts away from, but a lot of options are still open here.
Meanwhile, back in Milta, TSM managed to creep their way in between Attrition and VS. Dodge just on the back end of it. You can see TSM actually has line of sight on so many different teams. Penta trying to find an angle there onto members of 22. As we take another look at the zone, it should shift away from the beach. Let's see where it goes. Still, miraculously enough, 16 teams alive, and that is a lot of field of Milton to play. Great for Fiumba, but this now means that teams like Oath, Gas Cans, and Dignitas all need to make moves.
This is also great for 303, at least for the moment. This is very similar to what we were looking at with Sonic's position on the previous game, where they have good high ground overlooking a lot of different teams, but what's going to happen once they have to move, because suddenly leaving that ditch trench area that 303 are currently in, it's going to be out wide in the open. I hope they have vehicles in case they do need to pull one of those maneuvers, but for everyone else that still needs to get into the circle, with, as you mentioned, the big field in play, what else is available to take? No Chance. They're now sending it in towards Young Kings. I don't know if they know that the team is up here. They see the vehicle. Are they going to keep the push? Are they going to try and go hyper aggressive here?
Oh, Waiku's actually stops and gets out of the US in preparation for the drive-by that No Chance was bringing, but just as the shots ring out, No Chance actually pulls back. You can see Rizola with the nade out, but RDS is going to fall. Balkan accidentally runs him over. Young King sees this in the kill feed, knows now is the time to strike. Sonic's even third-partying onto this, and that nade should clean house. Gets the flush onto RDS, and there you have it. No Chance had no chance at all. Young Kings picks this one up, but now they need to get into the zone.
Oath now sending out on in. A lot of shots coming in from so many teams all around them.
Oh my god, the mini-map.
Where is there to go? There's that little bit of a shack. They're spotting it out. No one's peeking them, but they're coming in from the hard angle. It's going to be a forced entry there. Fortunately, no one is inside. So it is safe refuge for them for now. That is, if they can all get inside, and Kickstart is able to find his way on in. Picks up a shotgun while he's at it. Because you know what, why not?
I mean, it's unfortunate they lost that dossier there. Could have potentially added some additional hard cover from when Sonics inevitably will come down from this hillside. But at least for right now, Oath not in throwable range for most of the teams in the area. So they'll be able to play from that shack for some time. But now on the edge of the beach, VS work their way in just outside of Dodge's compound. And Dignitas holding on to what little bit of ridgeline they have. I think Honey Badger's just barely in the zone, but moving forward after phase 4, they're no doubt gonna have to move from the spot and make a decision on who they want to crash. But you can hear tires starting to pop right now as gas cans, who are also still out of the blue, doing some damage there onto Dignitas's vehicles, but now working on the transition of their own, getting in a zone, stopping just short of Veritas. There's a bit of a ledge that they can play from inside the circle.
Working on rotating as well as dealing damage to other teams. Dignitas are playing around with a very, very small margin of error here. They're going to follow up on Gascan's position. Hikerman spotted it out, switching to a grenade. Actually, he's going to underhand throw that. Expecting Dignitas to land right on it. They're sending it over. It's a full crash coming on in. Admin and Hikerman both getting knocked, but Sparking and Poonage are there for the trade return. And the remaining Gascans members are out in the blue. It's on Niku's. Does Dignitas know what angle he's going to be approaching from?
I mean, we saw Adam look in both directions in confusion, not sure which member of Dignitas to shoot at, but like you say, Niku's still in, and it has a good headshot there onto Honey Badger. Gets a knock out of Sparking as well, and no, he's gonna fall to the zone here. Make sure, oh, excuse me, to Unciv, actually, who had an eye on him. He's gonna make sure to do what he can to get rid of a player of Dignitas, but actually looks like Poonage managing to get all of these reses. So Dignitas should recover as a 3-man. Meanwhile, Attrition also on the edge of the zone, taking shots towards members of Sonic. He spotted Mime Smoke Cloud. It's not a good place for Mime to be. Kind of caught out in the open between multiple teams' line of sight, including the Young Kings.
The circle shift keeps a lot of the Milta field in play. So Oath are laughing, at least for now. But if you're not inside, and even Sonics, their compound's in the circle, but it's on the edge. They're trying to find a little bit more, but you can tell that it is not a super comfortable high ground position that they have, even though it is on the high ground. But back here, TSM still facing off against Versus. Grenade comes on through, gets an angle onto one, does Luke, and there it is, the final grenade coming out from Alo to do the rest of the work to remove them, and just in time, because they have I think that's a small shack that they can rotate to, but now it's Dignitas' turn to rotate, and this is going to be directly into Oath's building, Oath's shack. How can they defend this?
I mean, we knew Dignitas was going to have to move from that position. Unfortunately, running from plan B, plan C, and not really left else to go. They've managed to get past that shack that Oath has. Actually found themselves a nice rock ridge line to play from. They can see the cover that they have here, and those UAS is aiding and creating some additional hard cover. Meanwhile, SSG walking up onto 303, but Stone Store getting a knock and flush onto Keenan. A Civ focusing on a res for Roth. You can see the nade out, trying to take down members of 303, switching to that M4, but Stone Storm once again is going to connect. It's traded out, though. Roth cleaning on the back end of it.
I cannot follow what the kill feed is trying to tell me right now, because so many open angles between so many different teams. We're seeing Troglodytas take a lot of damage. We're seeing so many fights all break out at once as the blue is pushing everyone towards that Milta field. Right now we're looking at Veritas. Eyes towards the north, eyes towards Troglodytas and 303. Space Station are eliminated. from an alternate side of the, no, actually from this very same side of the circle from the map. And it's just one survivor each of Dignitas and 303 to try and snake it out. But finally we get a little bit of calm, that is, before Young King continue to push onto Sonics as we see the circle slightly west of center. Still Oathshack in play. They had a rough time defending it previously from Dignitas. In fact, Relo going down to his own grenade. And with Attrition, TSM, and Dodge in prime position, be the next team to approach that compound, Oath are going to have to clean that up a little bit.
I mean, Oath and Dignitas both had to feel really good about those sends that they sent across the field. It was a bit of a risk, but right now the reward is high. The question will be, can they continue to hold that position as teams work their way into the zone? Young Kings and Sonics fighting for that high ground position in this circle, as Waikus and Flux both with the Bolty and a DMR out. We've got the SLR and Car 98 into play, trying to do some long-range shots there at Sonics, keep them at bay. But as you see back on the opposite side of the circle, Veritas still quick on their feet here for 22. Throwables out. Lobes trying to get... Ooh, actually manages to pick up 3 with that nade. Great use right there. Dodge is going to fall, but 22 down to just Vinny. And Veritas have to be a little bit careful getting tunnel visioned onto this because, as you mentioned earlier, there's so much third partying going on from so many teams. Right now is Trisk taking shots towards Veritas.
He's trying to rotate around to a sneaky angle, but I think it's going to be, yep, caught out by Veritas. With 3 eyes all focusing on the prize, they can spread their angles and make sure there wasn't a single position for Vinny to come on in through. But TSM, a lot of damage onto them. They might have did the last bit of damage needed to take Dodge out of this. But it is just Luke remaining, leaving Penta to bleed out. Not an opportunity for the revive. Running away from Attrition, but he's going to be running into Fiumba.
No doubt Luke 12 has the highest survival time of any member of TSM right now. Once again, we see him as the final member, but again, you can't discount him when he's at the edge of the blue. We see him find scoring opportunities time after time again here as he closes the gap there onto DraftKings, onto members of Fiumba, looking for that extra kill. Even if the chicken dinner's out of the question, TSM finds the opportunity to get those kills up on the leaderboard. Meanwhile, the other picture, we can see Young Kings finally closing the gaps between Sonics. That fight starting to come to an head as both teams still try to battle for that dominant northern position of this zone.
Luke tossing utility out, able to stay alive just for a second longer, and Poonage is going to finish him off with an AWM shot. Looking at 7 teams, and considering the damage that Sonics is doing towards Young Kings, it might just be 6, but Flux is there to give some return fire.
Oh, this
forces Tiggleton away.
Oh, I just fell short hitting the edge of the rocks there. We can see Flux trying to keep up with Waikus. It's not really going to be a good opportunity for a res. And now Veritas spotting what's happening with the smokes, looking to see where to take the shots, but turning their attention back to Dignitas. You can see the damage traded to Ethan with sparking. And as the circle shifts once again onto Oath, onto Dignitas, it's all the rest of the teams stuck around the edge that are going to have to start fighting into one another. Sonics and Young Kings have been going at it with each other for quite some time. As Sonic's starting to break off, look for another angle of approach here. You can see Shrimzy really keeping a watchful eye on what's happening, actually turning her attention to Veritas, getting a knock onto Lobes by Tiggleton. Maybe even flushing out what's left of Veritas.
This could be the time that we see Sonics come alive here. Only 1 kill right now, but you can just see the angles that they have, the presence that they're able to input on so many other teams. Veritas get taken out in 7th place. So we're looking at 6 teams remaining. The revive coming through. Dwaikus by Flux. But pushing out, they have just a little bit of tree cover remaining before they have to enter in the field. And that could be Dignitas standing in their way. As you see Sonics now right on top of Attrition, who made their way across the field from Milta. Gets flashed by his own grenade, but it's going to be Poonage with his AWM to drop Shrimzy and leaving just Tiggleton and Mime remaining for Sonics.
Attrition now within throwables range as well for Sonics. You can see a couple thrown up their way towards Shrimzy. Attrition left 1 behind to play anchor further south as he manages to snake his way into zone quiet and calmly. But Tiggleton, Mime, although without Shrimsy, aren't going to break this one off just yet from the Young Kings. They aren't going to feel comfortable turning their back towards the zone until they've handled Waikuz and Flux. And you can see shots back out, but Mime actually taking a bit of damage there from Flux. Waikuz seeing what he can hit with the Molotov. And it's actually going to be a little bit of help from Fiumba as they get a knock onto Flux, turning Waikuz's attention back away. So Young Kings down to just 1 up here on the north.
He's got a bolt, as well as his, of course, rifle. What can you do with it? Stealing some damage from Attrition onto Oath. That's going to be Oath removed. Just a well-placed grenade is all that they needed here. But immediately here comes Fiumba striking back on in. And now the widespread that Attrition have, will it start to fall apart? Because again, not a lot of cover here up in the hills. It's just some trees remaining. I saw a little bit of damage. But the fact remains that they're the only team that I would dare call healthy. Especially if these pieces of utility land in the pocket that Dignitas have made for themselves.
Oh, Waikuz as well, still a factor. Punich goes down here from Viz King, sparking. Last one still up for Dignitas, and Waikuz using this as the opportunity to strike, does find it. That's it for Dignitas. Immediately they're turning its attention back to LFP, finds one knock onto a member of Attrition. 2 actually go down. Fiumba helping out. It's now a 1v1v1 situation. LATAM holding the lead here in the final match of the evening. Who is this chicken dinner going to go to? Are we going to see a three-peat from Young Kings? Will Fiumba get a second chicken dinner, or Attrition finally get one on the board? DraftKings taking the push right now on to Vinsky. Actually, is going to take him down. Attrition falls here. It is now a 1v1 versus Young Kings. Waikuz has the angle.
This man is going insane. 6 kills for him right now. He completely just dismantled Attrition from his lone position, his lone angle, and he knows that it's a 1v1. He should know where the last Young King is hanging out at. However, Waikuz has multiple death boxes to re-loot back up, so there could be a resource advantage here for Young Kings of the North. They spot each other out. DraftKings has a vehicle that is way too low on HP to utilize. He's gonna maybe try and bait it out. The fact remains that he's going to have to run out in the open, and Waikuz can just stay here and wait.
I mean, the circle will end just at the edge of the field along the tree line. And where the circle is, DraftKings will inevitably feel more pressure from the blue earlier on. So as you say, Waikuz just needs to hold this angle a little bit longer. Play this one patiently, and we could potentially see a third chicken dinner for the day, a three-peat, the hat trick for Young Kings. And right as the peak happens, there it is. 9 kills and another victory as they win the last game of the evening.
I thought they were out. I mentioned how Sonics earlier on, when there were 7 teams remaining, could have easily been in a position, just nail a couple of more grenades. Maybe through a couple of oversteps, they could actually run onto Young King's position. But Young King were able to manage their resources, manage their spacing, and bit by bit, go down that hillside. And we actually got it. We actually got the 3 in a row by no other than Young Kings. If you told me that was going to happen at the start of the day, if you told me that was going to happen at the start of this entire event, I would have told you that you were lying. But these guys have showed up today in a way that no one would have expected.
I mean, as you say, they've showed up. They've brought games with high kills. They've won games with low kills. And that game right there was slow, strategic. I mean, they took the engagements. They kept the pressure on all the teams around that they needed to. And they managed to pull it back, kind of keep their head down, let some other players do the work. And they took each and every fight individually and smartly. Now, they got a lot of help from Attrition and from Dignitas and from some of the other teams that were there in the late game. But to say that they haven't put the work in to get 3 wins in a row today would be absolute insane, because they have found a winning combination that works for them.
I'm still shocked. I'm still surprised. Not only the fact that Young Kings got that 3-piece, but also DraftKings. He was so close to making it work. You saw the utility thrown out at the end by both of those players, because even though Waikuz did have a better angle, the blue was only going to give him that little bit of an advantage for a few moments. So you saw him already preemptively throwing a couple of smokes out, knowing that DraftKings was going to have utility of his own. but it was just a slight overstep on DraftKings while he threw his own smokes out to try and get that smoke wall that could have been so useful in the final moments, but just stood out for a second too long. And that gave Waikaz the opportunity with that DMR to find the shots that he needed to take that 1v1. I don't know what else to say about it. It was just so close. It was an open field in the center between both teams. It was a true cowboy standoff. Just get the nice little whistle music, get the tumbleweeds rolling on through. You got everyone on the sides, closing the shutters. Of course, they're already dead at this point in this case, but still.
I want to say that there's still a heartbreak in that game too for Sonics. I mean, we saw them play the edge that game. We saw them kind of put in the work, try to stay at a situation that they could remain under control of. But with a circle like that, the way that it put so many teams kind of on top of each other all along the edge, they weren't the only ones that were struggling. And we saw that time and time again for the teams that are coming in from the north, 303 and 22, with Dignitas, with Oath, with gas cans. So many of the teams are kind of playing their hearts out all along the edge. When you have a big open field like that, it's hard to do. And as we take a quick look at the highlights, we can kind of see once again what we were really talking about. And I mean, LATAM has been so aggressive for this event. They've been bringing on that fight early on in the day. Troglodytas and 303, no exception to that here in phase one. And I mean, Troglodytas and 303, I want to give credit where credit is due, because these are two teams that for me have grown since last week.
Definitely since last week. Troglodytas still don't look like the Troglodytas that we fell in love with during PCS 4. But here is the start of Young King's rampage. The first few kills, good placed grenade as they saw no chance coming for their position, and there it is, 4-piece done. And this send by Dignitas onto gas cans. I think you could make a slight criticism of Dignitas waiting a little bit too long, because you saw that the blue pushed them in this direction. But ultimately, when you play the edge like Dignitas do, sometimes you put yourself in a position that a crazy send like this is the only option that you have.
And Luke 12 too. I want to really give credit. I mean, Luke 12, Alo, just the work that they've put in all day in terms of kills for that team. It leaves me impressed time after time. Even when we see Luke 12, I kind of made a little bit of a joke during the stream, but he's always the last player up. He's got the higher survival time, but he finds ways to use that to his advantage to team, to help out that kill count, get them growth, and to just kind of shake it off and prepare themselves for the next match. But again, I mean, we talked about this clustering of teams. The shack that Oath took early on, Attrition sent too, and they cleared this out. And this positioning that Attrition had was a huge help for those teams at the end game, but ultimately kind of got caught off guard at the end by Dignitas, by Fiumba.
Yeah, I think Oath were really banking on the teams on that hill to really help defend them from that push from Attrition. Unfortunately, Sonics literally just got taken out. Young Kings were only down to 2 players, if not 1 at that point. So there wasn't the number of players on that ridge to really make that shack safe at all, because we all know how dangerous a shack can be. You just throw a grenade, you throw a molly. That's exactly what they did. But here is the match standings at the end of all of that. Very, very even kill distribution amongst the top teams, and that just shows you how chaotic it was. And it was difficult, if not impossible, to see a round like that where there is a single team that posts up and really takes over with 12, 16, 20 kills.
You know, and too, I mean, Waiku's DraftKings getting 6 apiece for their team, just absolutely insane. But Ethan and Danny G, they've really been bringing it for their team today. You can see in the previous match, Ethan actually getting 629 damage. But it's actually a good spread to show all of the teams that were really engaging throughout the early to mid game. They're sparking at the top with 742. Luke 12's Shrimsy up there as well. And I mean, we have had exciting match after exciting match. There really hasn't been a game where we said, oh, that was boring, or that was a boring circle, or that really just favored one team the whole game. We've seen a really good spread for all of the top 16 teams through today, and a bit of a jump. Now, to see a 3-peat, though, a 3 win by one team in one day, absolutely wild. Yeah. You know, Gas Can started off the day with the very first win onto Miramar, but Young Kings running away with it the rest of the day. That just kind of makes me wonder what kind of momentum these teams are going to take going forward into tomorrow, especially for the ones that have those high kill counts and just need 1 or 2 chicken dinners to put them in that winning spot on the leaderboard.
Yeah, and with any team getting 3 wins in a row like this, it's going to put a lot of pressure on the teams that are trying to chase, especially in this new format. So I'm really excited to see what these teams are going to try and do tomorrow to really make up that gap.
All right, well, that is it for us for the matches, guys. Don't go anywhere because we've got an interview with Poblex from Young Kings coming up. But before we do, guys, make sure that you check out PUBG New State. PUBG New State will be available to play soon for mobile. Be sure to pre-register today and prepare for your battle in Troy. I'll be right back with the interview and the analyst desk. So, guys, don't go anywhere. And thanks for tuning in today.
PUBG New State. Developed by PUBG Studio, PUBG New State will launch as a free-to-play experience on Android and iOS in 2021. Make sure you pre-register on newstate.pubg.com now.
Welcome back. After a three-peat, we had to talk to Poblex from Young Kings. We asked Bruno to come on as a translator, so bear with us, but we're going to get into it right now. Let's get started. I want to start first by saying congratulations. Did you expect 3 wins when you guys showed up to play today?
Parabéns, Poblex. Você esperava 3 vitórias quando vocês apareceram para o torneio hoje?
Cara, a gente não esperava 3 vitórias consecutivas. Isso foi um bagulho muito insano. A gente vem trabalhando dia por dia, screen, jogando, cara, 12 horas por dia, 10 horas por dia. E isso é fruto de um trabalho que a gente vem tendo já há um tempinho. E ainda tem muita coisa para arrumar ainda, mas eu não esperava não. 3 wins seguidas é uma parada muito insana.
I said I didn't expect in 3 wins in a row. This was something very insane. We have been working day after day, playing screen 10, 12 hours a day. This is a result of work that we have been doing for a long time, and there's a lot to fix, but I don't expect at all.
Awesome. What an awesome answer. Godspeed. Your turn.
Well, again, to echo Steve, congratulations, Poblex. You guys obviously played really insane today. My question is, the second game you won, which was the first game on a wrangle, what was the decision to not push in third party between Dodge and Sonics?
Na primeira partida que vocês ganharam, qual foi a decisão para não avançar entre o time Dodge e o time Sonics? Qual foi a decisão que vocês tomaram?
Cara, ali foi o seguinte, o iCus tomou um knock pra Sonics, que isso fez com que a Dodge rotasse pelo outro lado. Eu recei ele e vi uma brecha na direita onde tinha uma paçoca, e eu falei bem assim, cara, acho que dá pra gente puxar pela direita. E nesse curto espaço de tempo, alguém da Sonics pegou o carro e crashou mais pra frente da negativa. E nisso eu falei bem assim, dá pra jogar pela direita. Vem, rapaziada, vem que aqui a gente pode ter uma chance de ganhar o jogo. Aí eu pronei ali no meio do aberto ali e fui passando a info pros moleques, né? Falei, ó, os caras tão comendo aqui. Se picar em cima, eu mato pra vocês. Pode ficar tranquilo, vai jogando daí. Aí o Miguel pegou a torre onde eles abandonaram, né? E a gente ficou com um terreno bem... com a safe toda praticamente pra gente, né? E a gente teve controle, a gente sabia que os times iam fightar a qualquer hora, a gente esperou o momento certo e conseguimos trazer essa segunda vitória aí. Segunda vitória consecutiva que foi muito suada também.
Basically, the player was in between Dodge and Sonics, and he saw that a player from Sonics was knocked down, and he saw opportunity to hide in the open field, and in a time when his opponent team's action was in the negative, so he had time to see he could play from the right, and he wanted a chance to win the game, waiting for a point during the open field. He waited this right time, and he was talking to his friends to keep coming, to don't stop, to be calm, because he know what time to fight. He knows that would be a time to fight, and he knows what time was perfect to get in the fight.
Nice.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that answer.
Yeah, again, just extending congratulations. It's great to see a team come out. It's very rare, actually, we see the three-peat from anybody. But I guess my question is leading more towards tomorrow now. With this leaderboard position, does this change your guys' ethos or the dynamic coming in tomorrow? Are you going to dial things back or kind of continue as, I guess, try and build on these successes that you found today?
Com essa posição na tabela, vocês pretendem mudar alguma coisa em relação ao jogo ou vocês pretendem manter o mesmo ritmo de hoje?
Cara, a gente pretende manter o mesmo ritmo de hoje. A gente vem se acostumando com esse novo meta, né, de win. É um meta um pouco doído, às vezes, né, porque às vezes você mata muito e no final ali acaba pecando em alguma coisa e pode perder a partida. Isso pode custar posições cruciais na tabela, mas o nosso time é um time novo, a gente está treinando, a gente está se adaptando a esse meta novo e a gente pretende manter a mesma pegada aí para representar bem o Brasil nessa final.
So we intend to keep the same pace as today. We have been getting used to this new meta. It's an advantage that can harm you because sometimes you kill a lot, and a mistake that harms you can broke all your leaderboard. So, but we pretend to keep the same pace.
Awesome. It was great getting insights into the way that you play. Congratulations on 3 wins. Do you have any shout outs or maybe some trash talk you'd like to give to the fans or enemies before you leave?
Você quer deixar alguma mensagem, talvez um trash talk para os fãs que estão escutando, estão vendo?
Eu queria deixar um recado, eu quero agradecer a toda a torcida da IK, né? A rapaziada aí que curte muito a Young Kings. Falar pra vocês que vocês são importantes pra caramba, mas independente do time que você torce, apoiem o Brasil, porque a gente sabe o tanto que esse campeonato pode ajudar a gente. Então, independente se você torce pra IK ou pra qualquer outro time, apoie o seu time. E um grande abraço, tamo junto.
He said that he wants to thank all the fans, the young King fans, and tell you that they are too important for us. But regardless of the team you support, please support Brazil, because you know how important this championship is for us. Regardless of who you support after your teams, and support Brazil, and a big hug to all the fans.
Awesome. Thank you so much for chatting with us. We'll see you soon. And I want to give a big thank you to Bruno as well for translating that. Those answers were excellent and very long. So well done, Bruno, with those translations. Guys, that's it for today. We're done, but we're going to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that we just saw. Primarily, Young Kings wins 3. And forget gold, frankincense, and myrrh. These guys brought us 3 chicken dinners, but they were all very, very different in how they won them, right?
I mean, this is one of those rare opportunities where a lot can be said about obviously slow playing through that Yasnaya victory. As far as I'm concerned, you're winning 3 games. I take my hat off to you. You cannot take anything away from those repeated successes that teams are able to find in a very, very brutal lobby, right? We know that these games have been so back and forth in terms of how teams have tried to adapt to yesterday some funky circles, and today maybe you could argue things going a little easier on that front. But yeah, it's a real testament to being able to secure a win from a position that isn't necessarily, black and white. It's not as if you look at that and say, that's a game-winning spot.
Especially that duo game that I believe you're talking about, where they weren't really gifted that.
Oh, Miramar, yeah.
Or guaranteed it. The other thing that's really interesting as well, looking at the stats, Young Kings had 6 kills. They had 6 kills coming into today. They are now at 3 wins with over 30 kills. So yes, you could argue they didn't do more what they could have, specifically in that game against Sonics and Dodgers. They could have cleaned up that circle and gotten the win. But the fact of the matter is you heard what Public said. They realized that all it was timing. They had to wait, and they were going to guarantee themselves, and I say guarantee themselves, a second dinner. So why would they not do that? On top of the fact that the game after that, the game before that they won, they did so with kills. So honestly, they really stepped it up and played an incredible game today.
I mean, and I think that, as the resident rat on this panel, and I'm sure Gosby can vouch for that more than anybody else.
It's true. It's true.
You got there, that his comment was real. Like, that was a tough spot to fight out of. He said, I saw the chance to make an open field hide, which nobody expects, right? When you turn out of that fight, you're looking at cover points. You're not looking at a random tiny piece of grass. And so they played it very strategically. And their other wins were big kill counts, 9 and 14 respectively. So they came to play, and great excitement for them as a group. They really did a great job. So let's talk about some prize pools, things like that. Let's get a little bit of housekeeping done and take a look at where everyone is. So week 1 standings. This is a reminder of what happened last week, because the overall winner is determined by the combined performance in the 2 weeks in terms of earning. Oath did win last week, and they took home $6,500. Good news for them to this week, I guess, Godspeed, is that the Young Kings didn't take any money last week.
Yes.
Correct. That is absolutely correct. The fact that they did not take him, which means that leaves the door wide open for Oath, who still is in the top of the leaderboard, to basically take this home. That being said, Fiumba, there's still quite a few teams that could absolutely kind of throw a wrench in that plan for Oath. Attrition has honestly been a super surprise for me last week. They've been great again this week, although the games didn't go their way. Again, the LATAM region is just stepping up, man, and this makes me even more excited for what's coming next with that region, and now our region, I should say.
Their region stepped up, and not their region is stepping up big time. 200 teams or something like that registered from Latin America for the open qualifiers. Like, this is a region that wants to get out there and fight. And if you think that you're ready to get out there and fight as well, I've got great news. Registration for PCS 5 Americas open qualifiers is open now. Get your squad ready for one last chance to earn PGC points and your share of $250,000. There's no reason not to. In fact, Babe Ruth said, never let fear of striking out keep you from playing the game. So log on, get your squad, show up, have some fun. Guys, it was a fun day today. I quite enjoyed it. It was not what I expected starting out, though, Hypoc. I did not think I would be walking away today with Young Kings in first place. I'll be real.
No, I don't think anybody would have predicted that, and it's a real testament to a lot of the things that Pablex was talking about in that interview, how they've turned a corner today, and how finally, all that investment of time and effort and really pulling together, and it's great to hear that side of things, and then also see the byproduct of that paying off on, you've got to say, probably one of the best days that we'll see across the entire event from any individual team.
And the end of that last game, Godspeed, very different. We talked earlier today. Everything seems to be coming down to big 4s and 3s at the end of these matches. And it was a 1v1v, a good old-fashioned.
It was a good old-fashioned 1v1. I do feel we were denied, though, like the true 1v1. I feel like DraftKings, unfortunately, there, he had the great foresight of throwing his smokes and getting ready to push on that utility, but then he just raw peaked, and Publix, or Waikuz, I believe, was the last one alive, had he shifted positions, and it took DraftKings a second to realize that, and he landed like 3 really clean shots. So that could have gone either way, to be completely honest, even though Waikuz had the better position. But yeah, most of our games have been between either like a 2v2v2 or a 3v4 or just a straight up 4v4. So that was a little different, but nonetheless, still pretty exciting overall. So today was a banger of a day. I enjoyed it.
We had some royally amazing games. That last one ended with a Draft King versus a Young King, but ultimately the Young Kings come out on top. Gentlemen, let's do some final thoughts before we call it a day. I'm going to start out with you, Hypoc. Final thoughts as we prepare for one more day with only 4 games.
I guess this is what to plant the seed with the viewers, really. Just take a look at where, obviously, we're looking at with the prize pool, who's going to cumulatively come out. With Young King sponging up wins today, obviously, we're looking for a mirror image, right, in terms of oath placement and then potentially who can pass them. So Gascan's a real opportunity here, and it's actually a big bonus that Gascan's have already got wins on the board. The Young Kings have taken 3 today, so tomorrow going to be really, really exciting.
Godspeed, final thoughts?
I'm still looking at teams like Fiumba. I still think Fiumba has a lot to show us. And Attrition, honestly. Yeah, Fiumba. And Attrition. Honestly, it's just this event has been phenomenal as someone who's been wanting to see LATAM really show up. And they've done more than show up. Multiple teams have done that. So I'm just looking forward to seeing how this finishes tomorrow.
They definitely have shown up, and I think they've shut up a lot of critics who've been watching them for a long time. Excited to see where they go, and where they're going to be is right here tomorrow at the same time, in the same place for the final 4 games of the ESL PUBG Masters Americas, and you would be a fool to not be here too. We hope that you are, and on behalf of all of us, myself, Hypoc, Godspeed, Clover, Cameron, and Bruno, our all-star translator, because again, that was a tough one. We appreciate you being here. We can't wait to see you till tomorrow. And until we do, play more PUBG.